types of transfer taxes, donor's tax, and estate tax. Ano ulit yung difference ng dalawa? Kapag yung donation, we're done with income tax, transfer taxes naman tayo. We have two types of transfer taxes, donor's tax, and estate tax. Ano ulit yung difference ng dalawa? Kapag yung donation is between living persons, buhay pa silang pareho, subject to donor's tax yan. Ang tawag natin dyan is donation inter vivos. Kapag naman patay na yung isa, yung donor, ang tawag natin sa kanya ay decedent, subject naman to estate tax. We call it donation mortis causa. Doon muna tayo sa donor's tax. Start muna tayo with the requisites and form ng donation. Doon tayo sa G-sheets natin. Sige, so let's read our G-sheets. Yung first sentence muna. The tax for each calendar year shall be 6%, computed on the basis of the total gifts in excess of 250,000 exempt gift made during the calendar year. Ang nating class, yung donor's tax is 6%. Ano yung mga requisites for a taxable donation? Number 1, capacity of the donor. 2, donative intent. 3, delivery. Kailangan yung delivery. And yung number 4, acceptance. So, tingnan natin class yung forms of donation. Depende yan kapag movable or immovable property. Kapag movable or personal property, kapag 5,000 or less, pwedeng oral or written. Kapag more than 5,000, in writing lagi yan. Kapag immovable, kahit anong amount, pag real property, in writing yan. Specifically, public document. Okay? Now, kung meron tayong classification of taxpayers sa income tax, meron din yan sa transfer taxes. So, tingnan natin. Kapag resident or citizen, R or C, pwedeng RC, NRC or RA, taxable yan within and without the Philippines. Kapag naman NRA, NRA-ETB, NRA and ETB, taxable lang siya within the Philippines. Ngayon, may exception to the rule tayo. Kapag NRA and if with reciprocity, ibig sabihin meron tayong usapan, agreement with another country, yung intangible properties ay magiging exempt siya. So, hindi siya taxable within and without. Take note, intangible properties lang ha. Kapag with reciprocity, yung personal properties and real properties ng isang NRA ay taxable pa rin within the Philippines. Alright? So, ito yung format ng computation natin ng donor's tax. Start tayo with gross gift minus mortgage assume. Pag inassume ni donee, ang tawag na dyan ay net gift. Add mo yung prior gift o yung last na donation mo. You have the total gifts minus mo yung exempt. Nadama ko class, yung exempt natin ay 250,000. Consistent yan sa tax table natin. You have the taxable gift. Again, 6% ang donor's tax rate. Multiply by 6%, we have the donor's tax. Okay, next. Doon naman tayo sa taxable donation. Okay, so sinulat ko na. Meron tayong 6 na transactions wherein taxable sila. Okay? Direct donation. Si A, nag-donate ng, let's say, 1 million kay B. 1 million. Yung 1 million na yan ay subject to donor's tax. Si A, kailangan magbayad niya ng donor's tax. Ang tawag natin yung class, direct donation. Okay? Donation through irrevocable trust. Ano ibig sabihin yan? Si A, nag-donate kay B, kaya lang, pinadaan niya ng trust. Okay? So, for example, si B ay, for example, incapacitated pa siya or bata pa siya. So, ang ginawa ni A, pinadaan niya sa trust, sa bangko. For example, yung trustor, yung trustee. Okay? Siya yung mag-manage ng 1 million. Ang tawag natin yung class ay donation through irrevocable trust, still taxable donation yan. Take note na irrevocable yan. Kapag revocable, okay, so take note, kapag revocable, lagyan ko ng X, ibig sabihin hindi siya taxable. Kasi pag revocable, anytime pwedeng bawiin ni A. So ibig sabihin, hindi siya donation talaga kasi anytime pwede niyang bawiin. Next is condonation of debt, forgiveness of debt. Kapag walang service, no service na ni-render, pero finorgive yung debt, subject to donor's tax yan. Okay, tawag natin dyan ay condonation of debt. And then, number 4 nating class is TFIC, Transfer for Insufficient Consideration. Applicable yan for both ordinary assets and capital assets. May exception lang tayo sa capital assets, except yung capital asset na subject to 6% CGT or real property. 6% CGT. Sir, bakit exception yan? Kasi kapag sale of real property, higher fair market value or higher fair market value and selling price. So kahit i-understate mo yung selling price, ang magiging basis mo is fair market value. So wala tayong concept na transfer for insufficient consideration kapag sale of real property. Okay? Ano ba yung TFIC ulit? Transfer for insufficient consideration. For example, nagbenta tayo ng sasakyan, ang selling price ay 1 million, pero ang fair market value talaga niyan ay 1.5 million. Ang cost ng sasakyan natin is 800,000. Therefore, yung difference ng 1 million and 800,000 is 200,000 gain. Okay, lagyan natin gain. And then, subject yan sa income tax. Yung difference ng 1.5 million and 1 million, that's 500,000. Yan yung transfer for insufficient consideration, subject to donor's tax, yung 500,000 na yan. Okay? Ganun siya. Next, specific renunciation of inheritance. For example, si Mr. X, namatay siya. Okay? May tatlo siyang anak. Let's say, wala siyang asawa. Okay? May tatlo siyang anak. And then, patay na si Mrs. X, yung asawa niya. So, may tatlo na lang siyang heirs. Yung 3 million, paghahatian nila yan. 1 million, 1 million, and 1 million. Kaya lang sabi ni C, ay hindi, ayoko na dun sa 1 million na yan. Bibigay ko na lang yan specifically kay A natin ibigay yan. Sabi ni C. Hindi ko na tatanggapin. I-renounce ko na yung inheritance ko. Ibigay natin kay A yan. So, si A, magiging 2 million na yung inheritance niya. Yung kapag specific, taxable yan. Alright? Ibig sabihin specific, ini-specify niya kung sino yung magmamana ng 1 million. Si C, ayaw niya, binigay niya kay A. Paano pag sinabi ni C, oh, hindi ko na yan, yung 1 million, hindi ko na yan i-claim, hindi ko na i-accept yan. Okay? Hati na lang kayo dyan, A and B. Ang tawag natin dyan, class, ay general renunciation. Kapag general renunciation, exempt yan from donor's tax. Kailan lang ulit magiging taxable donation? Kapag specific or in-specify mo kung sino yung magmamana ng share mo na 1 million. Okay? Next, renunciation by the surviving spouse of share in conjugal property. So take note, conjugal, ibig sabihin ng may-ari niyan both si Mr. and Mrs. X. For example, yung total nilang assets ay 3 million, we call it estate. Okay, hati dyan si Mr. X and Mrs. X. So, tig 1.5 million sila dyan kasi conjugal property. Ngayon, ang sabi ni Mrs. X, siya yung surviving spouse. Ang sabi ni Mrs. X, hindi, yung 1.5 million, bibigay ko na sa mga anak ko yan. Si A, si B, and si C. So, basically, nirenounce niya. Hindi niya tinanggap yung share niya sa conjugal property na 1.5 million. So, in this case, tandaan nyo class, whether niya specify niya na si A lang, o kaya naman, general, sinabi niya, sige, hati-hati sa A, B, and C. Whether specific or general, taxable donation niya. Okay? Yun yung difference nila. Kanina, nakalagay specific renunciation. Pag specific, taxable. Pag general, hindi taxable. Ang difference kapag renunciation, surviving spouse, o conjugal property, whether specific or general, lagi ang taxable donation. Okay? So yung 6 na yan, ang tawag natin yung class, these are taxable donations. Next. Next natin is... Ano pa? Doon tayo sa exempt donations and yung void donations. Punta tayo sa G-sheets natin. Alright, so baba kayo ng konti. Ito yung mga exempt donations. So doon sa under the tax code, gifts made to or for the use of the national government. Next is gifts in favor of educational, charitable, religious, cultural, and so on and so forth. Take note lang yung sa last sentence, provided that no more than 30% of said gift shall be used by such donee for administrative purposes. So 30% yung threshold natin. Okay? Baba ka ng konti. Meron din tayong under special laws. Kapag nag-donate ka sa mga nakalista dyan, ay hindi yan subject to donor's tax. Archives of the National Historical Institute, Development Academy of the Philippines, Integrated Bar, and so on and so forth. Just familiarize yourselves. And then also, nakalagay dyan, kapag related sa political contributions, hindi rin siya subject to donor's tax. May dalawa tayong requisites. Number 1, dapat yung contribution is for campaign purposes only. And number 2, dapat yung donation is reported sa Commission Election or COMELEC. Okay? Sige, doon naman tayo sa void donations. Kapag yung donations between spouses, except minor gifts, void donations yan. Between persons who were guilty of adultery and concubinage, between persons found guilty of the same criminal offense, public officer, incapacitated persons, and donations of future property. So, familiarize yourselves, void donations yan. Alright? Doon naman tayo sa valuation methods. Okay, very important kung paano natin siya i-value. Kasi obviously, yun yung magiging basis ng 6% donor's tax natin. So, tignan mo muna class. Kapag real property yung dinonate, for example, lupa. So, i-compare mo yung tatlong amounts. Assessed value, appraised value, or zonal value. Piliin mo dyan whichever is highest. Okay? Kapag naman personal property, fair market value. Kung ano yung value niya today. Alright? Now, kapag shares naman yung donate. Okay? Kapag shares siya, na-listed, depende. Kapag traded or not traded. Kapag traded, piliin mo yung highest, lagyan natin highest, and lowest price niya, and then computein mo yung average ng dalawa. Okay? So, kapag traded, average of highest and lowest. Kapag hindi naman traded, book value per share ang gagamitin mo. Yung parang sa FAR na discussion natin. So, book value per share, yun yung magiging basis kung magkano yung fair market value per share na dinonate. Alright? So, yung mga kailangan mong tandaan kapag valuation of donations. Sige. So, ayan, I think nasabi ko na lahat about donor's tax, pero dun muna tayo sa last part, no? Sa rules to observe. Nakalagay, as a rule, the value of the property shall be the fair market value when the gift was made or as of the time of donation. Letter B, the time to value kapag perfected na yung donation. Kailan? Pag na-deliver and accepted na. When the donation is subject to a suspensive condition, o kapag na-fulfill na yung condition, yun yung time kung kailan natin i-measure yung fair market value of the donation. Okay? Sige. Let's go to number 79. Which of the following donations, inter vivos, pag inter vivos, ibig sabihin between living persons, subject to donor's tax, may not require that it be made in writing. So again, sa forms, if you remember, kapag personal property, 5K or less, 5,000 or less, pwedeng oral or written. Pag nag-exceed ng 5,000, written yan. Kapag real property, kahit anong amount, always written. So yung A, C, and D, lahat yan ay written. Yung B, donation of personal property, the value of which is 5,000. Again, pag 5,000 or less, pwedeng oral or written. So hindi required na written yan. Letter B yung sagot natin, boy, for number 79. Number 80, Statement 1, donor's tax shall be levied, assessed, collected, and paid upon the transfer of property by any person, resident or non-resident as a gift. That's correct. Statement 2, the donor's tax shall apply whether the transfer is in trust or otherwise, whether the gift is direct or indirect, and whether the property is real, personal, tangible, or intangible. That's also correct. 81, when an indebtedness is cancelled without any service. Nasaan yun? Condonation of debt without service, rendered by the debtor in favor of the creditor, though forgiveness of debt will result to, letter C, taxable indirect donation. Letter C for number 81. Numbers 82 to 84, problem solving tayo. So, tingnan natin class. Ang tanong dyan, number 82, how much daw yung gross gift? 83, what if NRA siya? How much yung gross gift? And then, what if may reciprocity? How much yung gross gift? Alright? So, again, to recall, kapag resident or citizen, taxable globally yan, within and without the Philippines. Kapag NRA, within lang. Alright? Sige. Alma, a Filipina, made the following donation. Siyempre, if silent, ang assumption natin niya, resident citizen yan. So, taxable within and without yan. Alright? So, first bullet, to nick a land worth 450,000 in Manila, lagay mo dyan class, land. So, real property within, kasi Manila nakalagay. So, lagay mo dyan, real property within. Next, to Rosalie, jewelry worth 100,000 in Japan, jewelry. So, personal property without, kasi Japan yan. Number 3, to Adeline, PLDT shares amounting to 150,000. Yung shares ay considered as intangible property since PLDT yan, within yan. So, intangible property within. Next, to Renard, a building in Italy, 1.6 million mortgage for 50,000 assumed by the donee. Yung since building yan, real property, nasa Italy daw, lagay mo dyan, without. So, real property without. Next, to Drew, land in Davao worth 300,000. Land, ibig sabihin, real property, nasa Davao. So, that's within. So, real property within. 300,000 cash. So, kapag cash tas ang consider dyan as intangible property for tax purposes. Alright? So, PNB New York to Heart. So, intangible property without kasi New York nakalagay. And then, 200,000 receivable, 50% condoned by Alma. So, again, kapag may condonation, 50% of 200,000 is 100,000. Yung 100,000 is subject to donor's tax. And last sentence, Alma sold land located in Manila for 900,000. Its fair market value is 2 million. So, ano tawag dyan, class? Transfer for insufficient consideration. So, ganito nangyari dyan. So, for 82, meron kang fair market value of 2 million and then yung selling price ay 900,000. Ang difference yung class ay 1.1 million. Ang tawag natin dyan is transfer for insufficient consideration, which is a taxable donation. Let's go to number 82. How much is the gross gift? Take note, class, kapag gross gift, ito yung tinatanong, yung pinakataas. Huwag mo muna i-minus yung mortgage. Okay? Ingat ka doon. Kapag gross gift, huwag mo i-minus yung mortgage assumed. I-minus mo yung mortgage kapag net gift. Okay? Or kapag kukumpute mo na yung taxable gift mo. Okay? So, sige. For number 82, ganito gawin natin. So, to nick a land worth 450, kasama yan. Kasi resident citizen pag silent. So, lahat yan ay taxable kahit within or without yan. Rosalie Jewelry plus 100. PLDT shares 150. Building 1.6. Again, wag mo muna isama yung mortgage assume. Kasi gross gift yung tanong sa atin. Next is land na 300. Next is cash na 300. Next is 100 na receivable na finergive or kinondone, and then don't forget yung 1.1 million na transfer for insufficient consideration. Sige nga, class, add natin lahat yan. 450,000 plus 100,000 plus 150,000 plus 1.6 million plus 300,000 plus 300,000 plus 100,000 plus 1.1 million. Sagot natin dito, class, gross gift ay 4.1 million, letter B. Kapag net gift, i-minus mo yung 50,000 na mortgage assumed yung sa fourth bullet. Okay? So, letter B tayo, 4.1 million. Number 83, if she is a non-resident alien, her gross gift is. So, class, kapag non-resident alien, tama ba? Nakalagay dito, taxable lang siya within the Philippines. So, tingnan natin kung ano yung mga within the Philippines. Nandyan yung land na 450,000, and then yung 150,000 na PLDT shares, ano pa? Nandyan yung land sa Davao na 300,000, nandyan yung receivable na kinondone, 100,000, plus yung transfer for insufficient consideration na 1.1 million. So, add natin lahat yan. 450 plus 150 plus 300 plus 100 plus 1.1 million, sagot natin yung class, ay 2.1 million, letter B. Okay? Letter B for number 83. Now, number 84. If she is a non-resident alien and there is reciprocity. Tama ba, class? Kapag with reciprocity, ang exempted lang sa donor's tax ay yung intangible properties within the Philippines. Okay? Pero yung personal real properties, taxable pa rin yan. So, alin yung mga, ito, within to eh. So, ganito gawin natin sa 84 class. Ito yung sagot natin sa 83, tama ba? So, tanggalin natin dyan yung mga intangible properties. So, tingnan natin. Yung 450,000, land yan, so kasama siya, 450. Plus yung 150 ay shares, hindi mo nasasama. Next natin ay yung 300 ay land, so kasama siya. Yung 100 ay receivable, hindi yan kasama, consider yan as intangible property. 1.1 million ay transfer for insufficient consideration, kasama yan. Add natin lahat yan. 450 plus 300 plus 1.1 million, sagot mo dito, class, 1,850,000, letter A, easy. Okay, so yan for number 84. Number 85. Okay, so next two items. During the year, Ronald gave a property with a fair market value of 2 million, unpaid mortgage of 200,000 to be paid by him. Okay? Ano ibig sabihin ng class? Hindi inassume ni donee. Babayaran ni donor yung 200,000. Alright? So, hindi siya, huwag mo i-minus yan. Tama? So, to his son, Daniel, and Daniel's bride, Emily, on account of their marriage, 15 months ago. The allowable deduction is, pwede mo bang i-deduct yung 200,000 mortgage? Hindi. So, sagot mo dyan, letter D, 0. Okay? I-minus mo lang yung mortgage pag inassume ni donee. Okay? Ni donee. Number 86, the donor's tax payable should be. So, dito natin sagutin yung 86. Donor's tax payable, start tayo with gross gift. Yung gross gift natin ay 2 million. Right? And then, walang mortgage, wala ring prior gift. Okay? Kasi isang donation na naman sa given sa atin. So, minus mo lang yung exempt. Don't forget na yung exempt natin ay 250,000. Therefore, yung taxable gift natin, 2 million minus 250,000 is 1.75 million. Donor's tax rate natin is 6%. Sige nga, class, 170,000 1,750,000 times 0.06. Sagot mo dyan is $105,000 tax. Final answer is letter B. Donor's tax, 105,000. Okay, so that's for donor's tax. Let's go to the second type of transfer tax, estate tax, your most favorite topic in taxation. So, ang technique sa estate tax is to know the computation format of the estate tax due. Start tayo with gross estate, less ordinary deductions. Ordinary deductions, meron tayong tatlo. LIT plus TFPU plus VD. Sir, ano yung LIT? Losses, indebtedness, and taxes. Ano yung TFPU? Transfer for public use or yung donation natin sa government. And VD, the vanishing deductions. Remember, pag ordinary deductions, LIT, TFPU, and VD. Tatlo yan. Alright? Minus natin yung special deductions. Tatlo rin yan. Standard deduction, family home, and yung retirement benefit. Alright? And then after that, i-less natin yung share of surviving spouse. We get the net taxable estate, multiplied by 6%. We have the estate tax due. Ngayon, analyze natin yung mga key points per component. Start muna tayo with the gross estate. So pag namatay, yung decedent, tawag natin sa kanya, yung decedent, may maiiwan siya mga properties. Ang tawag natin doon ay gross estate. Ano sir yung mga properties na yan? First is real property. Baka may naiiwan siya na land kasama sa gross estate yan. Tataksan natin yan. And then, personal properties. Okay? So now, sir, ano naman yung situs pagdating sa estate tax? Actually, same lang siya dun sa donor's tax. Kapag resident or citizen, taxable siya within and without the Philippines. Okay? Taxable globally yan. Kapag non-resident alien, taxable lang siya within the Philippines. Alright? So parang sa donor's tax, applicable din dito class yung kapag with reciprocity, and then resident alien ka, yung intangible properties ay magiging exempt siya. Okay? So take note, yung intangible properties lang ha. Yung real at personal properties, kapag non-resident alien ka, ay subject pa rin sa estate tax. Okay? Now, let's go to number 3. Ano sir yung T-code? Transfer in contemplation of death. So for example, si A, transfer niya or dinonate niya yung car niya kay B. Buhay pa sila pareho. Kaya lang si A, marami siyang sakit. Ni-expect niya, baka ilang months na siya mabubuhay. So ibig sabihin, yung donation niya ng car na yan, ay ang motivation niya ay dahil mamamatay na siya. Ang tawag doon ay transfer in contemplation of death. Subject to estate tax yan. Pag donation, ang general rule natin, subject to donor's tax. Except kapag transfer in contemplation of death, estate tax yan. Right? Next, transfer of property. Dalawang klase yung transfer. Pwedeng revocable, pwedeng irrevocable. So for example, si A, nag-transfer siya ng car kay B. Okay? Sabi ni A, o B, pwede kong bawiin anytime sa sasakyan ha. Oh, let's say namatay si A. O B, pwede kong bawiin anytime sa sasakyan na revocable yan. Kay A pa rin yung sasakyan yan. Therefore, pag namatay si A, part yan ng gross estate niya. Ngayon, ang usapan naman nila, o A, sabi ni A kay B, o B, sige, sa'yo na yung car na yan. Hindi ko nababawiin yan. Namatay si A. Hindi na sa kanya yung car kasi irrevocable yan. Na-transfer na yung ownership kay B. Alright? Next, number 5, transfer under power of appointment. Dalawang klase yan. Meron tayong tinatawag na general power of appointment or special power of appointment. Now, for example, si B, nag-transfer ng car kay A. Point of view tayo ni A, ha? Take note, point of view ni A. Sabi ni B, o A, yung car na yan, kahit kanino, pwede mo ibigay yan. General. Right? So, it's as if, tapos namatay si A. So, it's as if may complete control tayo dun sa car. Ibig sabihin, kapag general power of appointment ay magiging part of taxable estate or gross estate yan ni A. Right? Ngayon, pag sinabi naman ni B, o A, yung car na yan, pwede mo lang ibigay kay C ha, specific or special, para lang kay C. So, it's as if parang agent lang si A ni B. Right? So, pag namatay si A, kapag SPA, hindi yan part of gross estate ni A. Right? Next, transfer for insufficient consideration. Ano nga ba yung class? Kapag yung selling price ay mas mababa sa fair market value. Sir, di ba subject yan sa donor's tax? Yes. Pero kapag related sa items 3 to 5, transfer in contemplation of death, transfer of property, transfer under general power appointment, kapag mas mababa yung selling price sa fair market value at related sa tatlo na yan, subject to estate tax instead of donor's tax. Okay? Next, proceeds of life insurance. Kapag proceeds of life insurance, obviously si A namatay. Okay? Meron siyang makukuha sa insurance company na death benefit. So, tingnan mo muna kung sino yung beneficiaries. Kapag ang beneficiaries ay yung estate, the administrator or executor, whether revocable or irrevocable, ay part yan ng gross estate. Because si administrator executor, kumbaga para siyang extension ni estate. Parang iisang tao lang yan. Yung estate, administrator, executor. So, kahit revocable or irrevocable, dun yan kay estate or sa decedent yan. Therefore, taxable yan. Kapag naman class, ang beneficiary ay others, ibig sabihin ng others, hindi si estate, hindi si administrator, hindi si executor. Kapag revocable, part pa rin ng gross estate yan. Parang kanina pag revocable kasi kay A pa rin yan. Okay? Kay decedent pa rin yan. Pero kapag irrevocable, may transfer na ng ownership. Hindi na yan part of the gross estate. Okay? Next, claims against insolvent person. Ano yung claims? Accounts receivable. Ano yung insolvent? Hindi na makakabayad sa'yo. Tama, insolvent na siya. So, yung AR, 100%. Okay? Ilalagay mo yan sa gross estate. Yung uncollectible portion, ilalagay mo yan mamaya sa ordinary deductions. Yan yung mga kailangan natin tandaan, class, para sa gross estate. Okay? So, continue natin yung format. So, tapos na tayo sa gross estate. Punta naman tayo sa ordinary deductions. LIT plus TFPU plus VD. Sa isay natin. Losses, ang ibig sabihin nito class ay yung mga casualty loss. Okay? So, for example, yung car ni A, yung namatay, yung decedent, biglang nanakaw. Okay? May casualty. Bigla siyang nanakaw. Ano mangyayari doon? Well, ang mangyayari doon class ay magiging part siya of the ordinary deduction. Pero take note, dapat yung loss na yan ay nag-occur during settlement. Pag sinabing settlement, ito yung time period na pagta-transfer ng ownership from decedent dun sa mga heirs, tagapagmana, and before last day of payment of taxes. Before last day of payment of estate tax. Okay? Ano ba yung last day? 1 year after death. 1 year after death. Okay? So, tandaan nyo class, yung losses, okay, for example, yung car ay nanakaw, magiging part siya of your ordinary deductions, pwede mo siya i-deduct, assuming nanakaw siya during settlement of the estate and before last day, before 1 year after death, before last day of payment of estate tax. So, yun yung L, losses, indebtedness, utang. Okay? So, dalawa yan. Merong claims against the estate. Tayo sa estate, tama ba? Pag claims against the estate, yun yung mga utang natin. Okay? Basically, yun yung mga payables. Lagyan na natin dito accounts payable. Yung mga accounts payable natin. Pwede mo i-minus yan. Alright? Claims against insolvent person. Ano naman yun? Di ba, sabi ko kanina, kapag yung 100% ng AR mo, papasok ng gross estate yan. Ito naman yung uncollectible portion. So, for example, ang uncollectible ay 40%. 40% ilalagay mo dito sa claims against insolvent person. Unpaid mortgage, for example, meron kang house, okay, si A, namatay siya, meron siyang house, pero may utang sa bangko, may mortgage. Ayun, pwede mo siyang isama as part of your ordinary deductions. Taxes, ang kailangan mo lang tandaan sa taxes, syempre, obviously, dapat unpaid pa yan. Okay, hindi pa bayad yan kay BIR, and nag-accrue siya before death. Okay, before death siya nag-accrue ha, hindi after. Okay, so before. Transfer for public use. Basically, donation yan sa government. Pero dapat naki-indicate yan sa last will and testament. Okay? So, kumbaga nakalagay sa last will and testament, o pag namatay si A, yung, let's say, 500,000 cash ay i-donate sa government. Yun yung ibig sabihin ng TFPU. And then, vanishing deductions. Tandaan nyo lang yung formula ng vanishing deductions. Piliin mo yung fair market value, whichever is lower. Okay? Ano yung lower? Lower kung kailan mo siya na-inherit at nung namatay si decedent, minus mortgage paid, makukuha mo yung initial basis. Initial basis minus deduction, paano computein yung deduction? Initial basis over gross estate times lit plus TFPU, yun nasa ordinary deductions. Siyempre, huwag mo sama si VD kasi yun yung kino-compute natin. Makukuha mo yung final basis. Multiply mo sa percentage, yun yung vanishing deduction. Sir, ano yung percentage na yan? Tingin tayo sa G-sheets natin. Punta ka dun sa medyo middle, sa baba, konti, yung vanishing deduction sa baba. Okay, so kapag 1 year, no more than 1 year, 100%. 1 to 2 years, 80%. 2 to 3 years, 60%. 3 to 4 years, 40%. 4 to 5 years ay 20%. Tandaan nyo lang yung formula sa vanishing deductions. Alright? Sige. Pero tingnan na rin natin class yung requisites ng vanishing deductions. Taas ka ng konti. The present decedent died within 5 years. So take note, 5 years. Second is, dapat part of the taxable estate. The estate tax of the prior succession has been determined and paid. And then, the property can be identified as one received from a prior decedent. No vanishing deduction of the prior decedent. Yun yung mga requisites bago natin ma-deduct yung vanishing deductions. But basically, ito yung formula natin. Next. So, okay na tayo sa ordinary deductions, lit, TFPU, and vanishing deductions. Next. Special deductions. Meron tayong tinatawag na standard deduction. Ang standard deduction ay kapag R or C, resident or citizen, standard deduction natin is 5 million. Right? Kapag non-resident alien, 500,000. Siyempre, kapag silent, 5 million. Okay? Kapag non-resident alien, 500,000. So, family home, fair market value or 10 million, siyempre, whichever is lower kasi deductions yun. Mas gusto ni BIR, whichever is lower kapag deduction. So, fair market value or 10 million, whichever is lower. Ibig sabihin, maximum na pwede natin i-deduct na family home ay 10 million. Retirement benefit, yan yung death benefit. Okay? For example, galing sa SSS na namatay. Okay? So, special deductions din yan. Less share of surviving spouse, yan yung share nung nabubuhay yung pang-asawa. Let's say si Mrs. A, okay, sa conjugal property. So, share surviving spouse. Less net taxable estate times 6%, we have the estate tax due. Alright? Sige. And then next, punta tayo sa G-sheets natin. Ano pwede natin i-discuss dito? Double check muna natin. Punta tayo dun sa, after ng vanishing deductions, meron tayong property relations between spouses. So, ito yung mga property regimes natin. Meron tayong tatlo. No? Complete separation of property, kanya-kanya basically. Conjugal partnership of gains and absolute community of property. So, mag-concentrate tayo sa CPG and ACP. Ano nga ba class yung date na important sa atin? Gagamit tayo ng ACP. Okay? Kapag kinasal, upon effectivity of the family code, which is August 3, 1988. Okay? Pag kinasal, August 3, 1988 onwards, absolute community of property. Before that, conjugal partnership of gains. So, tingnan natin class yung table natin para familiar din tayo sa rules ng CPG and ACP. So, concentrate kayo dun sa naka-highlight na yellow. Okay, ibig sabihin kasi ito lang yung mga kakaiba na rules. Property acquired before marriage. Kapag gratuitous, under CPG, exclusive. Kapag ACP, community yan. Tandaan nyo kaya siya tinawag na absolute community of property. Dahil lahat ng properties na dadali mo sa marriage ay magiging sa inyo na nung asawa nyo yan. Okay, magiging common na yan. So, kung mapapansin nyo class, onerous, kapag CPG, exclusive. Pero kapag ACP, community. So again, pag ACP, lahat ng properties, whether galing sa gratuitous or onerous yan, saan nyo na pareho yan? Community property nyo na yan. Letter C, where the spouse is a legitimate descendant from a previous marriage. Kapag may previous marriage, may anak doon, syempre, exclusive yan. Okay? Dun sa bago niyang asawa. Because mas priority yung anak dun sa previous marriage. Right? Next, property acquired during marriage. So kasal na kayo. Kapag gratuitous, ano ba example ng gratuitous? Minana. Okay? Parehong exclusive yan. Kapag onerous, ibig sabihin ng onerous, binayaran, conjugal siya, kapag CPG, community, or ibig sabihin, joint sila, parehong sa kanila yan, for ACP. In exchange of exclusive, exclusive, exclusive. In exchange of conjugal, conjugal, conjugal. Or yung conjugal community, magkamukha lang ibig sabihin, jointly owned ng spouses. Ito, so may highlight na naman. Fruits or income from exclusive property. Kapag fruits, kahit saan pa yan galing, under CPG ay conjugal siya. Kaya siya tinawag na conjugal partnership of gains. Partner sila sa lahat ng gains. Example ng gains ay yung fruits. Okay? Pero kapag ACP, galing sa exclusive property, follow mo yung source. Exclusive pa rin yan. Next, letter F. Fruits or income from conjugal or community property. Again, kapag CPG, lahat ng fruits yan. Kahit saan galing. Exclusive or conjugal, conjugal yan. Pero kapag ACP, i-follow mo yung source. Galing sa community property, community yan. Property for personal exclusive use, exclusive, exclusive yan. Except jewelry. Jewelry under ACP, community lagi yan. Alright? And then last one, sa baba. Pero yung jewelry sa CPG, hindi yan diniscuss sa before the family code. So kaya not applicable yan. So again, kapag jewelry under ACP, ay community yan, mag-fall. Alright? So doon tayo sa last one, valuation methods. Actually, pareho lang siya. Nung donor's tax natin, pag real properties, per market value, zonal value, piliin mo mas mataas. Personal properties at fair market value. Shares, kapag traded, average ang high and low. Kapag not traded, book value method. Okay. Sige. So, yun lang yung mga kailangan natin tandaan sa estate tax. Let's answer. Number. Ano tayo number? 87, estate tax accrues from. Punta ka sa letter A, the moment of death of the decedent. So, upon death, dun mag-accrue yung estate tax. Kailan ulit babayaran yung estate tax? 1 year after death. Okay? Yung deadline of payment. Number 88, the personal properties of a non-resident, not citizen. Ano ibig sabihin class ng non-resident? So, ibig sabihin alien siya and not citizen. Kapag non-resident, ibig sabihin, non-resident, kapag not citizen, ibig sabihin alien siya. NRA. Okay? NRA yan. Kapag NRA, would not be included in the gross estate if, punta ka sa letter B, hindi i-include yung intangible personal property pag may reciprocity. And the reciprocity clause of the estate tax law applies. Okay? Yung A, okay sana intangible personal property, kaya lang hindi minention na may reciprocity clause. So, best answer is B. Yung letter C, tangible personal, shares of stock, letter D, kasama yan. So, ang excluded lang ay yung B. Ito siya. Okay? Exempt siya or excluded. Number 89, which of the following is an exclusion from gross estate? Transfer in contemplation of debt, included yan. Transfer under special power of appointment, may X, excluded. B na yung sagot natin. Transfer for insufficient consideration, included. Next is claim against insolvent person, 100%, included. Letter B. Number 90, which of the following is not considered an ordinary deduction? Unpaid mortgage, ito, indebtedness. Next is indebtedness or claims against the estate, yung mga payables natin. Transfer for public use or TFPU, standard deduction is part of the special deductions. Ang tanong sa atin, ordinary, letter D, special deduction, yung standard deduction yan. Letter D or dog. Number 91, statement 1, conjugal partnership of gains, absolute community of property, and complete separation of property regimes may govern property relations between spouses. Correct. Statement 2, under the regime of absolute community of property, the husband and wife place in a common fund, proceeds, products, fruits, or income from their separate property, etc. Correct din yan. Ibig sabihin daw, lahat ng properties na dadali na sa marriage ay magiging common sa kanilang dalawa. Both statements are correct. Letter C for number 91. Number 92, which of the following is incorrect? Alin daw yung mali class? A, property acquired during marriage through gratuitous title is exclusive under conjugal partnership of gains. Tama yan. Kapag during marriage, pag gratuitous, whether CPG or ACP, pareho sa lang exclusive. Okay? Letter B, property acquired gratuitously before marriage is community under absolute community of property. Kapag before marriage, dinala mo sa marriage, community na yan under ACP. Tama yan. Letter C, yung mali. Fruits or income from exclusive property earned during marriage are exclusive under conjugal partnership of gains. Mali. Lahat ng fruits, lahat ng income, kapag CPG, under CPG, lahat ng fruits, lahat ng income, whether galing sa exclusive or sa conjugal, ay magiging conjugal yan, CPG yan. Okay, letter C, yung incorrect dyan. Pero kapag naman ACP, ipa-follow mo kung ano yung source. So, sino yung sagot natin? Letter D, property acquired during marriage in exchange of exclusive property is exclusive under ACP. That's correct. 93, we have 2 questions. So, ano yung pwede natin i-erase dito? So, make sure class na copy nyo to ha. So, erase ko na. And then, para meron tayong space. And then, sagutan natin yung number 93. Mr. X died and left the following properties. So, tignan mo natin class yung question. Question 1, if the decedent is an NRC. And question number 2, if the decedent is NRA without reciprocity. So, i-apply lang natin dito yung situs of estate tax. So, alam natin class, kapag Non-resident citizen, nasaan yun? Ito, C. Non-resident citizen, within and without yan. Kapag NRA, within lang yan. Okay, isa-isa natin class. House and lot in Quezon City, lagay mo dyan within. House and lot in USA, without. Land in Baguio, within. Merong unpaid mortgage na lagay. Tama ba class, yung unpaid mortgage ay part of your ordinary deduction. Tama? Indebtedness, unpaid mortgage. Next, vacant lot in Manila, lagay mo dyan within. Car in Manila, within. Jewelries in USA, without. And then, saan ako? Other personal properties in Manila, within. Franchise in Japan, without. Receivable from debtor in the Philippines, within. Receivable from debtor in Japan, without. Bank deposits in BPI, within. Bank deposits in Canada, without. Shares of stock in a domestic corp, 40% of the business in the Philippines. Yung 40% ay irrelevant yan. Kasi domestic corp na, automatic, within yan. Shares of stock in a foreign corp, 70% of the business in the Philippines. Shares of stock in a foreign corp, 90% of the business. Ang threshold natin ay, ilagay mo dyan, 85% para maging within. So yung 70% dyan na shares of stock, without yan. Yung 90% pasok sa threshold, or pasok sa cut-off natin 85%, or sumobra sa 85%. Okay, na-meet na yung threshold na 85, therefore yung 90% na yan ay within. Okay? And then yung last one, shares of stock, 75% of the business, okay, without sana, kaya lang nakalagay, acquired situs in Philippines. Ibig sabihin na acquired situs, as if domestic corporation yan. So, within yan. Alright? So, question number 1 for number 93. 93, question 1. So, if the decedent is NRC, his gross estate is, so actually, kapag NRC, within and without yan eh. So, add natin lahat. Sige nga, class, tulungan nyo ako mag-add. 3.7 million plus 2 million plus 1 million plus 1.5 million plus 500,000 plus 300 plus 200 plus 100 plus 90 plus 100 plus 90 plus 50,000 plus 100 plus 150 plus 250 plus 175,000. Makukuha mo dyan is 10,305,000. Hindi mahalaga sa atin kung within and without kasi pag resident or citizen, lahat yan, letter A sagot natin for question 1. Huwag mo i-minus yung unpaid mortgage because ang tanong sa atin is gross estate. Okay? Question number 2. Sabi naman dyan, class, kapag NRA, without reciprocity, without daw eh. So, ibig sabihin, yung intangible property ay hindi exempt. Taxable pa rin yan. So, isama lang natin lahat ng within. So, lagyan natin dyan, yung house and lot in Quezon City, 3.7 million. Ano pa yung within natin? Land in Baguio, 1 million. And then, vacant lot in Manila, 1.5 million. Ano pa? Yung car in Manila na 500,000. What else? Next natin is yung other properties in Manila na 200,000. Next is yung receivable from debtor in the Philippines, 90,000. Plus bank deposits BPI, 90,000. Plus shares of stock, saan ako? Within dapat, no? Domestic corporation, 100. Shares of stock, yung 90%, 250,000. Plus yung shares of stock na nag-acquire ng Situs, 175,000. So yung class, double check natin. 3.7 million plus 1 million plus 1.5 million plus 500,000 plus 200,000 plus 90 plus 90 plus 100,000 plus 250,000 plus 175,000. Sagot ko dito is 7605,000. Letter B. Easy. O yan. Within lang pag question 2 na NRA. Paano naman kapag with reciprocity? O yun yung number 94. So punta tayo sa 94. The following are properties in the gross estate of a decedent with their fair market value. Okay, meron tayong house and lot, meron tayong deposit in the foreign branch of a domestic bank. O yung house and lot muna. House and lot is real property. Deposit in the foreign branch. So again, mga bank deposit, intangible property yan. Shares of stock, intangible property. Pieces of jewelry, personal property. Receivable, debtor, or house receivable, intangible property. If the decedent was NRA and there is reciprocity, property excluded from gross estate is valued at. Tama ba, class? Kapag with reciprocity, lahat ng intangible properties ay exempt. Ano yung mga intangible properties sa number 94? Yung deposit. Okay, deposit sa foreign branch sa 500,000. What else? Yung shares of stock na 1 million. And then yung receivable na 200. 500 plus 1,000 is 1.5 plus 200, 1.7 million. Sagot dyan is letter C for number 94. 95. Pedro died on Feb 1, leaving a 1,000 square meters of parcel of land in Sampaloc, Manila with the following valuations. What would be the value of the piece of land in the gross estate? Piliin mo lang kung ano mas mataas yan. Tama? So yung assessed value, class ay 25,000 per square meter daw. 1,000 square meters lahat. 25,000 times 1,000, that's 25 million. And then, yung zonal value, nakalagay dyan 18 million. Siyempre, whichever is higher, yung rule natin, parang sa donor's tax kanina. So, piliin mo dyan 25 million, letter C for number 95. Number 96, a decedent left 10,000 PLDT shares. The shares were traded in the local stock exchange. At the time of death, the following were available. Ano yung rule natin, class? Ano yung rules natin pagdating sa shares? Kapag traded, average ng highest and lowest. Kapag hindi naman traded, yung book value ay traded daw. So, piliin mo yung average na 500 yung given sa problem. 10,000 shares, sabi dyan yung average ay 500, ibig sabihin, class. So, 10,000 times 500 is 5 million. Sagot mo dyan is letter B, 5 million. Okay, so that's for estate tax. Let's continue your discussion. We're done with income tax and transfer taxes. Proceed na tayo sa business taxes. Business taxes are considered as indirect tax. Ibig sabihin, allowed tayo na i-pass on or ipa-shoulder yan sa mga consumers. Under business taxes, we have VAT and OPT. Start muna tayo with VAT. We know, yung computation ng VAT, we have output VAT, minus input VAT, we have the VAT payable. So ibig sabihin, class, ang technique for VAT is to know the sources of output VAT and the sources of input VAT. Okay? Doon muna tayo sa output VAT. For output VAT, meron tayong two rates na pwedeng gamitin. Kapag yung sales natin ay domestic or local or sa Philippines tayo nagbebenta, 12%. Kapag naman nag-export tayo, 0%. Ang tawag natin dyan ay zero-rated sales. Okay? So, isa-isahin natin yung sources of output VAT. Number one is sale of goods and services. Nagbebenta tayo ng goods and services. So, ang tax base mo dyan is the gross sales. Gross sales times 12% kapag domestic sales. Gross sales times 0% kapag export sales. Next is sale of properties. Nagbenta tayo ng property, pero depende yan kung anong type of property. We know for tax purposes, may dalawa tayo. Ordinary assets and capital assets. Ano yung difference ng dalawa yan? Ordinary assets, ginagamit sa business. Capital assets, hindi ginagamit sa business. For example, nagbenta tayo ng ordinary asset for 1 million. Selling price natin is 1 million. Ang cost natin is 800,000. Ibig sabihin, meron tayong gain na 200,000. We know yung gain na yan ay subject to income tax. And yung 1 million na selling price natin na yan ay subject to VAT. Okay, so again, pag nagbenta ka ng ordinary asset, yung gain mo ay subject to income tax. Yung selling price mo ay subject to VAT. Alright? Pero pag ang binenta mo is capital asset, since hindi naman ginagamit sa business yan, hindi yan VATable. Next, leasing. Paparenta tayo. Technically, type of service yan. Alright? Tignan mo muna kung anong klase yung pinaparenta natin. Pwedeng residential or commercial. Kapag residential, tignan mo how much yung monthly rent. Kapag hindi nag-exceed ng 15,000 per month, regardless kung how much yung annual rent, exempt yan from both VAT and OPT. Pag nag-exceed naman ng 15,000 yung monthly rent, yung total annual rent ay hindi nag-exceed ng 3 million, yung 3 million, yun yung VAT threshold natin, exempt from VAT, subject to OPT. Kapag nag-exceed ng 15,000 yung monthly rent, yung total annual rent ay nag-exceed ng VAT threshold natin ng 3 million. Ibig sabihin, subject yan to VAT, pero hindi subject to OPT. It's either VAT or OPT, hindi sila pwede magsabay para ma-avoid yung direct double taxation. Doon muna tayo sa fourth, transportation. Technically, again, service yan. Okay? Tingnan mo muna kung saan yung ruta. Yung route natin, pwede domestic or international. Kapag domestic, sa Philippines yung nagtatransport, tignan mo kung anong klase yung tinatransport. Kapag goods or cargoes, whether land, air, or sea, VATable yan. So, lagyan ko na ng check, VATable yan. Okay? Pero kapag ang tinatransport ay passengers, mga tao, tapos via land, okay? Kunyari, mga bus, or mga taxis, or grab, ayan ay subject to OPT. To be specific, 3% CCT yan, Common Carriers Tax, or OPT, later i-discuss natin yan. Pero kapag passengers via air or sea na domestic, pareho yan ay VATable. Lalagyan ko ng check kapag VATable. Kapag naman class ang transportation natin is international, okay? Yan yung mga international carrier. For example, yung mga Cathay Pacific, Jetstar, yung mga ganyan. Actually, exempt yan from VAT. Alright? Mamaya, di-discuss natin yan dun sa exempt transactions. So, ito yung sources of output VAT natin. Okay, so, dito naman tayo. Sir, sino ba liable to pay VAT? Dalawa yan. Okay? First is, kapag VAT registered ka. Pag nagpa-register ka for VAT, regardless kung how much yung gross sales mo, annual, hindi na mag-matter. Yung 3 million ay hindi mag-matter yan. Pag VAT registered, kahit anong amount yung gross sales mo, multiply mo by 12% yan, yung output VAT mo. Next is VAT registrable. Ano ibig sabihin, sir, ng VAT registrable? Kapag yung gross sales natin ay nag-exceed na 3 million, and may specific provision pa, kapag radio or television company ka, ang gross sales mo ay nag-exceed ng 10 million naman sa past year, previous year, VAT registrable ka. Ibig sabihin ng registrable, mandatory registration yan. Required, okay? Sir, paano kung VAT registrable pero hindi pa rin nagpa-register? May penalty ka. Ang penalty mo, magbabayad ka ng output VAT, hindi ka pwede mag-claim ng input VAT. Okay? Now, meron din tayong tinatawag na optional registration. Ibig sabihin, hindi mo na-meet yan, yung VAT registrable, pero gusto mo pa rin ipa-register. Pwede yun. For example, yung gross sales mo hindi nag-exceed ng 3 million. Pwede mo pa rin ipa-register yan. Let's say, yung mga binibenta mo ay VAT exempt. Gusto mo maging VATable. Pwede yun. Radio and television company ka, hindi naman nag-exceed ng 10 million. Pwede mo pa rin ipa-register? Yes, optional registration yan. Kaya lang may catch dyan. Kapag yung mga yan ay nag-optional registration ka, irrevocable yan. Walang bawian for 3 years yung first two. Pero pag radio and television, irrevocable na yan, lifetime. Wala nang bawian yan. Okay? Sir, ano ba ang advantage kapag nagpa-register ka for VAT? Pwede ka mag-claim ng input VAT. Okay? Yun yung biggest advantage niya. Next, doon naman tayo sa sources of input VAT. Ayan, enumerate ko na. First natin is, pag sinabi mo kasing input, ibig sabihin yung ginamit natin para i-produce yung output. Okay? So, purchases of raw materials and actually kasama yung supplies. Okay? Yan yung ginamit kasi natin, raw materials and supplies, para i-produce yung output VAT natin. So purchases, multiply mo sa 12%, yun yung input VAT. Next is importation. Pag nag-import ka, tignan mo muna. Pag gagamitin mo sa business yung in-import mo, pwede mong i-claim as input VAT yan. Pag for personal use, hindi mo pwedeng i-claim as input VAT. Pero regardless, Whether for business or personal, magbabayad ka ng 12% dyan eh. Okay? Kasi ikaw yung bumili. Bayad ka ng 12%. Pero ang pwede mo lang i-claim na input VAT ay yung business, for business purposes. Okay? Capital goods, nag-acquire tayo ng PPE, gagamitin natin sa business. Pwede yung source of input VAT. Kung magkano binili mo, acquisition cost, multiply mo by 12%. Next is, number 4, PIV, presumptive input VAT. Okay? Ang presumptive input VAT natin ay 4%. Kanino nga ba applicable yan? Processor of samami. Ano yung samami? Sardines, mackerel, and milk. Okay? Applicable din yan sa manufacturer of Recopa. Ano ulit sir yung Recopa? Refined sugar, cooking oil, and pack-based noodles or yung mga instant noodles. Alright? So sa kanila lang applicable yung presumptive input VAT. Sir, ano yung formula dyan? Well, yung primary agricultural inputs, okay, mumultiply mo siya by 4%. Times 4%, iyan yung computation ng input VAT. Alright? Next, transitional input VAT or TIV. Ano ibig sabihin yan? Transitional. First time magiging subject to VAT. Okay? Dati, non-VAT ka, ngayon magiging vatable ka na. Yun yung transitional input VAT. Ilang percent yan, sir? Actually, yan ay 2% naman. Sir, paano computation yan? Yung beginning inventory mo, composition yan ay yung raw materials and supplies. Okay? I-multiply mo siya sa 2%. Okay, so ulitin ko. So, paano kinukumpute yung transitional input VAT? Beginning inventory, which is yung raw materials and supplies, ito, multiply mo sa 2%. 2% hindi 12%. I-multiply mo sa actual input VAT na binayad mo dyan sa raw materials and supplies. Ang pipiliin mo dyan, whichever is higher. Tanda mo, whichever is higher. Kasi ini-encourage ng BIR na magpa-VAT register. Alright? So, transitional input VAT, 2% of beginning inventory or actual input VAT paid, whichever is higher. Alright? So, that's number 5. And meron din tayo tinatawag na standard input VAT. Ang standard input VAT naman class ay 7%. Paano nangyari yan, sir? Standard input VAT pag nagbebenta tayo sa government, sales to government. For example, tayo si A. Nagbenta tayo ng 100,000 kay government. Ang ibabayad niya sa atin ay 95,000 lang. Because yung 5,000 na 5%. Okay? 5,000 tama ba class ay 5% yan ng 100,000 eh. I-withhold na niya yan kay BIR. Alright? So, ganun siya. Paano nakuha, sir, yung 7%? 12% minus yung withhold na 5%. Ang tawag natin dyan, standard input VAT, applicable siya kapag sales to government. Alright? Sige. And by the way, class, bago ka makapag-claim ng input VAT, dapat both si buyer and si seller ay VAT registered. Parehong VAT registered bago makapag-claim ng input VAT. Okay, so balik tayo dito. So meron tayong output, yung sources of output, and meron tayong input. So tingnan natin, class, yung mga different scenarios. Doon muna tayo kapag subject to 12%, mamaya na yung export. So kapag yung output mo is 24, so ito yung mga assumed figures lang, and yung input mo is 14. So output minus input, so ibig sabihin may 10 tayo na VAT payable. Okay, VAT payable tawag natin dyan, syempre, ibabayad natin yan kay BIR. Okay? Second scenario, what if output natin is 8, input mo 12, mas mataas yung input. O, yung negative 4 na yan is a prepaid asset. Pwede mo siyang ipang-offset dun sa output VAT mo sa next quarter. Okay, ganun siya. Ngayon naman, class, kapag naman export, alam natin, pag nag-export tayo, mga zero-rated sales, export mo, zero, yung output VAT mo is 0. Pero pwede ka mag-claim ng input dyan. So, ibig sabihin, magiging negative yung input mo. Magiging negative yan. Because 0 minus 12 yan. Tama? Ano yung gagawin natin sa negative 12 na yan? Actually, meron tayong 3 choices, si taxpayer. First is, pwede niya i-carry over yan. So, carry over. Ibig sabihin, pwede niya ipang-offset sa iba niyang domestic sales. For example, yung taxpayer, meron siyang domestic sales at meron siyang export sales. Yung input VAT niya dun sa export sales, pwede niya ipang-offset dun sa domestic sales kung meron man. Okay? Second, pwede niya ipa-refund yan. Siyempre, cash yan kapag ni-refund. Okay? Medyo matrabaho lang, matagal lang yung proseso. And next is pwede niyang i-convert yan sa tax credit certificates. Kapag sabi tax credit certificates, pwede mo siyang i-offset sa other types of taxes. For example, ipang-offset mo siya sa income tax, pwede yun kapag TCC. Alright? So, ulitin ko. Kapag meron kang input VAT from export sales, pwede i-carry over, pang-offset mo sa ibang domestic sales, pwede i-refund na cash, or pwede mong tax credit certificate, ipang-offset mo sa other types of taxes, such as income tax. Okay, next. Ano pa? Meron tayong next ay yung exempt natin, VAT exempt transactions. So, tingin tayo dun sa G-sheets natin. Okay? And by the way, punta ka muna dun sa G-sheets natin, yung sources of output VAT, yung letter D. Nakita mo yung deemed sale transactions. So, ibig sabihin ng deemed sale transactions, again, sources of output VAT, letter D. Pag sinabing deemed sale transactions, kahit hindi pa actually nabebenta, considered na as sale yan. Subject na yan to output VAT. Basahin natin. Number 1, transfer use or consumption, not in the ordinary course of business, intended for sale. Number 2, distribution or transfer inventory to shareholders, so basically, pinang-dividends mo. Distribution or transfer inventory to creditors, pinambayad mo sa creditors, ito mahalaga. Number 4, consignment of goods if actual sales not made within 60 days. Kinonsign mo, kasi consignor, hindi nabenta within 60 days, considered as sold na yan for tax purposes, subject to output VAT yan. Retirement from or cessation of business with respect to ending inventories. Okay. And baba muna tayo ng konti, class, no? Meron tayong nakalagay dyan yung zero-rated natin. So basically, ang zero-rated ay yung mga export sales. And then, may tinatawag din tayo class na effectively zero rated. So, baba ka dyan. Pag sinabing effectively zero rated, iyan yung under special laws. Pag nagbenta ka sa mga yan, sa mga institutions na yan, ay considered as nag-export ka. Okay, alin yan? Sale to Asian Development Bank, ADB, sale to International Rice Research Institute or IRI, sa SBMA, and sa PEZA. Okay? Even doon na sa Pilipinas sila, pag nagbenta ka dyan, considered as nag-export ka. 0% yung output VAT mo dyan. Sige. And then, ayan, punta tayo sa VAT exempt transactions. Baba ka ng konti. Section 109, isa-isay natin class. And i-highlight ko kung yung mga pinaka-important dito. So, doon na tayo sa mga naka-bold na items. A, sale or importation of agricultural and marine food product in their original state. Very important yung original state. Original state pa rin kahit nag-undergo ng simple process. Ano yung mga simple process na yan? Freezing, drying, salting, broiling, roasting, smoking, stripping. Considered as simple process, original state pa rin yan, VAT exempt. Kapag beyond simple process, wala dyan sa listahan na yan. Doon sa 6 na yan, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, sa 7 processes na yan. Pag wala dyan, ibig sabihin, vatable na yan. Okay, letter B. Sale or importation of fertilizer, seeds, seedlings, etc. C, importation of personal household effects returning from abroad. Yung mga OFWs, bumalik dito sa Pilipinas. Okay, letter D, importation of professional instruments and implements. Letter E, services subject to OPT. Again, hindi pwede magsabay ang OPT at VAT. Kaya pag subject ka sa OPT, exempt lang sa VAT. F, services of agricultural, contract growers, medical, dental, veterinary, educational services, employee-employee relationship, regional area headquarters, international agreements. Ito naman yung mga cooperatives. Agricultural cooperatives, lending activities, okay, non-agricultural, non-electric, export sales by non-VAT registered individuals. And then letter P, sale of real properties. Ito yung sale of house and lot and other residential dwellings. Again, as of today, 3.6 million yan. Okay? Pero again, nagbabago yan every 3 years. Okay? Ang gagamitin mo dyan ay yung CPI, yung Consumer Price Index. Pero 3.6 million. Ibig sabihin, pag nagbenta ka ng house and lot or mga condo, tapos hindi nag-exceed ng 3.6 million yung price, VAT exempt yan. Pag nag-exceed ng 3.6 million, vatable na yan. Next, lease of residential units with monthly rent not exceeding 15,000, yung lagyan natin kanina. Next is transport of passengers by international carriers. Ito siya. Yung sinabi ko kanina, exempt yan. Next is sale or importation of cargo vessels, aircrafts, importation of fuel goods and supplies, service of bank and non-bank intermediaries, sale to senior citizens, PWDs, alam natin, senior citizens, PWDs, exempt from VAT yan. Transfer of property, merger consolidation, association dues, sale of gold to BSP, sale of importation of prescription drugs, diabetes, high cholesterol, etc. Okay, and so on and so forth. Alright, and since nagbebenta tayo ng goods and services, pag vatable yan, kailangan mo mag-issue ng VAT invoice. Right? So, yun yung issue natin. Okay, so, and last one pala class. Sir, paano kung yung binasa natin na listahan ng exempt transactions? Paano sir kung iyan yung binenta natin, exempt transactions? Well, again, walang output VAT. Walang output VAT dyan. Hindi zero ha. I mean, hindi siya zero rated. Exempt siya. So, walang output VAT. Yung input VAT natin, for example, meron, let's say 100 yung input VAT, pwede mo siyang i-charge sa cost of goods sold or allowable deductions. So, ulitin natin class. I-compare natin. Kanina, kapag zero rated, may tatlo kang choices. Carry over, refund, TCC. Kapag naman exempt yung binenta mo, obviously wala output kasi exempt sa output VAT eh. Pwede magka-input yun eh. Tama? So yung inputs, yung ginamit mo doon para i-produce yung output. Let's say ang input mo is 100. Ano sir, pwede natin gawin dyan? Well, pwede mo siyang i-charge sa cost of goods sold or allowable deduction. So basically, bababa yung net taxable income natin. Okay? So ayan. Nakakita mo tandaan for VAT. Let's answer our handouts. 97, statement 1. For VAT purposes, a taxable person is any person liable to pay VAT, whether registered or registrable. Registered, registrable. That's correct in statement 1. Statement 2, the status of a VAT registered person. So VAT registered person shall continue until the cancellation of such a registration. That's correct. Letter C tayo, both statements are correct. 98, this refers to any person who is required to register under the provisions of the tax code but failed to register. Well, ang tawag sa iyo dyan ay VAT registrable. Okay, VAT registrable ka. Pag VAT registrable, mandatory yan. Pag di mo ginawa, may penalty ka. Bayad ka ng 12% output, hindi ka pwede makapag-claim ng input. Next, so letter B tayo for number 98. Number 99, which of the following shall be subject to VAT? A, sale of agricultural food products in their original state. Kapag original state, exempt. B, sale of services subject to OPT. Kapag OPT ka na, hindi ka pwede subject sa VAT, exempt. Lease of residential units with monthly rent not exceeding 15,000, exempt. So none of the above. Letter D tayo, walang subject yan to VAT. 99, letter D. Number 100, which of the following is not exempt from VAT? Transport of passengers by international carriers, exempt. Services rendered pursuant to employee-employer relationships sa compensation natin, exempt yan, compensation income. Walang VAT yun. Letter C, sale or importation of agricultural, marine, again, original state, exempt. Letter D yan. Iyan yung hindi exempt. Distribution or transfer of inventory to creditors in payment of debt. Ang tawag natin dyan ay deemed sale transaction. Vatable yan. Letter D for number 100. 101, Statement 1, the input VAT of purchase of capital goods valued at 1 million shall be spread over 60 months. Statement 2, the input VAT of purchase of capital goods shall be spread over the life less than 5 years. Hindi mo i-spread out yan. Kapag yung purchase of capital goods, kung magkano mo binili, for example, binili mo 1 million, diretso na times 12%, 120,000, yun yung output VAT na babayaran mo. Hindi mo yun i-spread out Both statements are incorrect, letter D. Number 102, which of the following is incorrect? Presumptive input VAT, PIV na 4%, is based on purchases of primary agricultural inputs, which are used as inputs to the production of price of sardines, samami, mackerel, and milk, and manufacturers of refined sugar, cooking oil, and packed noodles. Tama yung A. B, transitional input VAT of 2%. Applies to taxpayers which became liable to VAT for the first time. Tama. Standard input VAT of 7% applies to sales to government. Tama din yan. Letter D, mali. Excess input VAT over output VAT on domestic sales. Domestic ba yan? Can be used as carryover. Tax refund or TCC. Hindi domestic sales. Dapat export sales. Okay, letter D, mali yan. 102. Letter D. Okay, so numbers 103, meron tayong 2 questions yan. So tingnan natin. First is, question 1, the VAT of X and Y. And number 2 naman, VAT of Z. So, compute natin how much yung VAT payable ni X, Y, and Z. The following information are available to you. Dito tayo magsagot. So, gawin natin is 103. Okay? All amounts provided are gross of VAT. Pag sinabing gross of VAT, inclusive of VAT yan. Okay? Pag sinabing net of VAT, exclusive of VAT. Kapag silent yung problem, net of VAT or exclusive of VAT. Pag silent, diretso multiply ng 12%. Ito hindi silent. So, sinabing gross. Ibig sabihin, ang computation ng VAT times 12 over 112. Okay, ganun gagawin natin. So, si W daw ay nagbenta kay X. Okay, so si X ay nagbenta kay Y, si Y ay nagbenta kay Z, si Z naman ay nag-export. Ganyan nangyari class sa number 103. So, tingnan natin. Si W nakalagay non-VAT. Lagay ko dito, non-VAT. Si X naman ay VAT. Okay, VAT registered yan. Si Y ay VAT registered din. Si Z ay VAT registered din. Okay, so tingnan natin. First question is, how much daw yung VAT ni X? So, X muna tayo. So, compute natin class. Tama ba? Doon muna tayo kay W. Non-VAT daw eh. So, 94,000. Huwag mong pakialaman yung 94,000. Okay? X VAT taxpayer sells to Y, 151,200. Compute natin class kung how much yung output VAT nung 151,200. So, sabayan niyo ako. 151,200. Since ang nakalagay dyan ay gross of VAT times 12 over 112. Lagay mo dyan 16,200. Nakuha niyan? 151,200 times 12 over 112, 16,200. Doon naman kay Y, 268,800. 268,800 times 12 over 112, lagay mo dyan 28,800. Okay? Kay Z naman class, yung 360,000, export yan eh. So, walang VAT yan. 0% yan. Okay? So, compute natin class kung how much yung VAT ni X. So, compute lagay natin dito. So, output and input. Okay? Output and input. Doon tayo kay X. So, class, tama ba si X ay bumili kay W? Ang problema ay non-VAT registered si W. Ang sabi natin kanina, so yung output VAT ni X muna. So, how much yung ulit yung na-compute natin earlier? 16,200. Okay? 16,200. Walang problema dyan. Dito may problema sa input. Bakit, sir? Si W kasi ay non-VAT registered. Sabi natin kanina, dapat both si buyer, si X, and si W, kung kanina niya binili, dapat both VAT registered yan bago siya makapag-claim ng input. Hindi pwede mag-claim ng input si X kasi non-VAT registered si W. So, ibig sabihin, ang VAT payable dito ni X ay 16,200. Letter A actually yung sagot natin dyan. Doon naman tayo kay Y. Okay? So, kay Y, how much yung na-compute natin na output VAT kay Y? Earlier, na-compute natin is 28,800. Ngayon, si Y ay VAT registered. Si X ay VAT registered. Ibig sabihin, si Y, pwede siya mag-claim ng input VAT. How much yung pwede niya i-claim? 16,200. 28,800 minus 16,200, makuha mo dyan class ay 12,600. Kaya ang sagot mo dyan sa number 103, question 1 is letter A. Question number 2, si Z naman. O, tingnan natin. Si Z ay VAT registered siya, pero nag-export siya. So, pag export, zero rated yan. So, zero yung output natin. And then, since parehas ng VAT registered, pwede mag-claim si Z ng input VAT na 28,800 minus 28,800. Ibig sabihin, meron siya negative 28,800. Sagot mo dyan sa question number 2, letter C, creditable. Pwede nyo gawin dyan, i-carry over, i-refund, or TCC. Letter C for question number 2, 28,800 creditable. 104, Jensen distribution, a VAT taxpayer had the following data in a month. How much is the output tax? So, compute natin class, diretso calculator tayo. Cash sales, kasama yan, 200,000. Open account sales, ibig sabihin credit sales, kasama yan kasi gross sales eh. Okay, ibig sabihin lahat ng binenta mo, whether cash or credit sales. 200 plus 500, oy, may consignment. Naalala nyo class kanina, yung consignment natin. So, tingnan natin, 0 to 30 days on which the remittance from consign is 200. O, nabenta na yung 200, add mo yun. Plus 200,000. And then, 31 to 60 and 61 days old and above. Tama ba? Yung nabasa natin kanina, dim sale na siya kapag hindi mo nabenta within 60 days. So, ibig sabihin, yung 61 days and above na yan, considered as sold na yan. Plus 900,000. Na-compute mo yung 1.8 million. So, ulitin natin. Sa 104, ang isasama ko diyang class ay yung 200,000 na cash sales plus yung open account sales na 500 plus yung 0 to 30 na nabenta na 200 plus yung 61 days and above kasi dim sale yan, 900. Mo-compute ko dito ay 1.8 million. Multiply natin by 12%. Okay, so 1.8 million. Double check natin. Multiply natin by 12%. Sagot mo dito class is 216,000. Letter C. Easy. Okay, so that's for VAT. Let's proceed to the second type of business tax, other percentage taxes or OPT. For OPT, naka-enumerate yan from sections 116 to 127. Isa-isahin natin yan. Start muna tayo with section 116. Persons exempt from VAT. Check mo muna if yung annual gross sales ay hindi mag-exceed ng 3 million, subject yan sa 3% OPT. Kapag nag-exceed ng 3 million, which is the VAT threshold, subject to VAT na yan. Okay, pag subject to VAT, hindi yan subject to OPT. So, ibig sabihin, sa section 116, ang pinag-uusapan natin, kapag may annual gross sales not exceeding 3 million, subject to 3% OPT. Second, domestic carrier, section 117. Tingnan mo muna kung ano yung ruta. Pag Philippines to Philippines or domestic, tingnan mo yung mode of transport. Pag via land or via air or sea. Okay? Kapag land na passengers, mga tao, tayo ang tinatransport, 3% CCT. Common carriers tax. Kapag naman via land, goods, cargoes, mails, or kaya naman air or sea, whether passengers, goods, cargoes, mails, ang taxation natin diyang class is either 3% OPT, yung nasa section 116, or VAT. Kailan siya may VAT? VAT registered, subject to VAT. Kapag nag-exceed ng 3 million, VAT registrable, subject to VAT. Kapag naman hindi nag-exceed ng 3 million, 3% OPT yan. And take note class, yung 3% CCT, hindi mahalaga yung 3 million na threshold. Kahit how much pa yung gross sales yan, 3% CCT yan. Okay? Kapag naman Philippines to abroad, siyempre via air or sea lang yan. So for example, Cebu Pacific or yung Philippine Airlines, whether passengers, goods, cargoes, mails, it's as if nag-export tayo. Therefore, subject yan sa 0% VAT. Okay? Zero rated yan. Next, section 118, international carrier. So, pinag-uusapan natin dito yung mga Qatar Airways, yung Jetstar, etc. Tingnan mo muna, kapag Philippines to abroad, and then passengers yung tinatransport niyan, exempt yan. Okay, actually, isa yan sa mga nakalista sa VAT exempt transactions na na-discuss natin earlier. Kapag Philippines to abroad, goods, cargoes, mails, ito naman class ay subject sa 3% CCT, common carriers tax. Yun yung nasa section 118. 3% CCT kapag Philippines to abroad na goods, cargoes, mails. Ngayon, kapag naman galing abroad, pabalik sa Philippines, whether passengers, goods, cargoes, mails, since earned outside the Philippines yan, exempt from VAT and OPT. Laging exempt kapag galing sa ibang bansa. Okay, number 4. Doon naman tayo sa section 119, franchise grantees. Tingnan mo muna kung anong klaseng franchise. Kapag gas and water, 2% franchise tax. Kapag radio and television, tingnan mo how much yung annual gross sales. Kapag nag-exceed ng 10 million, yan yung VAT threshold for radio and television. Therefore, VATable na yan. Kapag naman di nag-exceed ng 10 million, meron siyang 3% franchise tax. Overseas communication. So, tingnan muna kung yung communication line, kapag dito lang, Philippines to Philippines, subject yan sa VAT. Okay? Kapag naman Philippines, originate sa Philippines to abroad, yan yung 10% overseas communications tax or OCT. And then, pag abroad to Philippines, same concept dito, pag galing ibang bansa, earned outside the Philippines, exempt naman yan. Okay, next, banks, section 121, and then non-bank, section 122, subject sa gross receipts tax yan. Tingin tayo sa G-sheets natin. Okay, so banks, tingin natin class. Interest, okay, nakita niya sa middle portion, interest yan is depende. Kapag yung maturity is 5 years or less, 5%. Kapag maturity is more than 5 years, mas mababa, 1%. Dividends, 0%. Royalties, rentals, 7%. Net trading gains, 7%. So familiarize yourselves. Again, few DC for the boards, basahin nyo na basahin yan para maalala nyo siya. Okay? Next, other non-banks, which is yung section 122 natin. Ito basically yung mga money changer, yung mga pawn shops, etc. Interest is 5%. Kapag yung maturity period is 5 years or less, 5%. More than 5 years, mas mababa, 1%. Next natin is life insurance. Okay, mga insurance companies, Philem Life, Sun Life, etc. Kapag life insurance yung class, 2% yung OPT niyan. Okay? Kapag naman non-life, for example, mga building or fire insurance, VAT naman yan. Okay? Kapag naman foreign insurance company, depende yan. Kapag nakipag-transact ka, dun sa agent mismo, ng foreign insurance, 4%. Pero for example, yung owner ng isang building, dumiretso siya dun sa foreign insurance company, mas mataas. Magiging 5% na yan. Okay? Next, amusement tax, section 125. Basahin natin sa G-sheets natin. Amusement, meron tayong 5. First is, boxing exhibitions, 10%. Professional basketball games, 15%. Cockpits, cabarets, night or day clubs, 18%. Halay and racetracks, 30%. Pogo, yung mga online gaming, mga online casino, online bingo, sports betting, 5% yan. Okay? Ang tawag natin dyan ay amusement tax. Ngayon, kapag boxing exhibitions, nakalagay dyan ay 10% pero merong exceptions yan. Pag na-meet niya, yung following requisites. Number 1, dapat ay World or Oriental Championship, ibig sabihin Oriental Asian Championship. Next is, one of the contenders is citizen of the Philippines. Isa lang kahit hindi both of them ay citizen of the Philippines. Next is, promoted siya by the Philippine Corporation at least 60% of capital owned by such citizen. Okay? Next, winnings. Section 126, ang pinag-uusapan natin dito, race horses, yung karera. Okay? Tingnan mo muna. Kapag yung nanalo, yung owner ng horse, 10% yan of gross winnings. Kapag naman ang nanalo ay bettor, depende yan. Kapag ordinary, yung bet ay 10%. Kapag ka naman special ay 4%. Pero take note, kapag bettor ka, bumibili ka ng ticket dyan eh. So ito ay based on net winnings. Ibig sabihin, ima-minus mo yung cost ng ticket. Pag owner, di ka bumibili ng ticket dyan eh. So yung 10% ay based on gross winnings. Kapag bettor, yung 10% ordinary, 4% special ay based on net winnings or ma-minus mo yung price ng ticket. Okay? And then last one natin class, pag may initial public offering, IPO, Session 127, meron tayong tinatawag na IPO tax, which is equal to 6/10 of 1%. Alright? Or 0.6% basically of the selling price. So pag nag-IPO and subsequently nagbenta, nagte-trade na, lagi siyang 6/10 of 1%. Alright? Sige, so yun yung kailangan tandaan for OPT. So sagot tayo class. Ano number na tayo? Number 105, Statement 1. Transactions that are subject to OPT are no longer subject to VAT. Tama yan. VAT may be subject to excise. Tama din yan. Okay? So Statement 1 is correct. Statement 2, all VAT-exempt taxpayers shall be subject to OPT. Not necessarily. Hindi basta VAT-exempt ka ay subject ka sa OPT. Merong mga VAT-exempt na totally hindi subject to business tax. False yan. Statement 3, a taxpayer is subject to percentage tax on his gross sales will also be subject to income tax. Pwede bang pagsabihin yung income tax at business tax? Of course, magkaiba yan. Binabayaran pareho yan ng isang business. Okay? So, true, false, true. A tayo. One of the statements is incorrect. 106, which of the following, one of the following is subject to percentage tax. Tignan natin class kung alin subject to OPT dito. A, establishments whose annual gross sales exceed 3 million and who are VAT registered. Well, hindi yan. Una, VAT registered ka, nag-exceed ka pa ng 3 million. Subject to VAT yan. B, businesses whose annual gross sales exceed 3 million who are not VAT registered. Kahit hindi ka VAT registered, nag-exceed ka ng 3 million, VAT registerable, subject to VAT. C, VAT registered, ayun pa lang, subject to VAT na yan. Establishment whose annual gross sales do not exceed 3 million. Yung letter D, yan yung subject to OPT. Letter D, sagot natin, establishment whose annual gross sales do not exceed 3 million and then hindi pa siya VAT registered. Okay? Letter D tayo for number 106. 107, Statement 1, a non-VAT registered transportation contractor who's engaged in the transport of passengers, okay, goods cargoes shall be liable to percentage tax under Section 116 from sale of transport of goods and cargoes. Goods cargoes mails, 3% OPT, tama yan. 3% common carriers tax from transport of passengers, tama yan. Statement 1 is correct. Statement 2, there are franchise holders whose gross sales are subject to 12% VAT even if not VAT registered. Yes, kapag yung franchise grantee ay radio and television, nag-exceed ng 10 million, VAT registrable yun. So subject to VAT yan. Kahit hindi ka pa VAT registered, kailangan mo pa-register. So statement 2 is also correct. Statement 3, the operators of bowling alleys are subject to amusement tax. Hindi. Wala yan sa binasa natin na amusement. Ang nasa amusement lang, boxing, professional basketball, cockpits, halalay racetracks, and yung mga online gaming. Walang bowling dyan, so subject to VAT yan. Okay? True, true, false. Letter A tayo, one of the statements is incorrect. Number 108, which of the following statement is incorrect? Franchise grantees on water and gas utilities, gas and water, 2%, tama yan. B, proprietor, lessor, operator, basketball games, 15, tama yan. International air carrier and air and shipping, doing business in the Philippines, subject to 3% CCT, tama yan. The owner of the winning horse is based on his net winnings, mali yan. Again, pag owner, wala ka namang ticket eh. Based on gross winnings. Ang net winnings, kapag yung better, tumataya ka lang. Letter D tayo dyan for number 108. And as the following data, what the correct amount of percentage tax should be. Meron tayong gross sales and may collections. Ano yung tax base natin? Kapag other percentage tax, laging gross sales. So, compute natin class. Tama ba? Gross sales yan ay 2,850,000. Okay? 2,850,000, hindi siya nag-exceed ng 3 million. Ibig sabihin class, 3% OPT tayo. 2,850,000 times 3%. Lagyan natin dito. So, 2,850,000, so 109. 2.85 million times 3%. Ang sagot natin dyan ay 85,500. Letter D yung sagot natin for number 109. 85,500. Number 110. James Transport Corporation, VAT registered, nakalagay VAT registered, offers passenger and cargo transport operations by land. Its gross sales from passengers amounted to 10 million. Tama ba class? Kapag passengers, 3% CCT yan. While yung cargoes naman, goods cargoes mails, 2 million. So, pero VAT registered yan. So, subject to VAT. How much is the CCT for the month? Well, ang babayaran niya dyan class, yung 10 million times 3% ay 300,000. Tama? Ito yung CCT. So, sagot mo na dyan ay letter A agad. Okay? Magbabayad din siya ng VAT na 2 million times 12% na 240,000. 240,000. Pag ang tanong sa'yo, how much yung total na babayaran niya? 540. Pero ang tanong lang, how much yung CCT? Pag CCT, yung passengers lang. Okay? So, CCT, 300,000. Yung VAT, since VAT registered dyan, 240,000. 12%. Okay? Letter A, sagot natin, 110. Letter A. Number 111. So, ABC Corp, not VAT registered. So, take note, hindi siya VAT registered. Is a radio, TV, broadcasting, franchise grantee, radio, TV, 3% yan. Okay? The previous year, its gross sales did not exceed 10 million. Hindi nag-exceed. So, doon tayo sa 3% kasi pag nag-exceed, vatable na yan eh. In the first quarter of the year, it had the following data. Gross sales, sale of airtime, 3 million, etc. So, question 1, how much was the franchise tax due? So, again, ang franchise tax ng isang radio and TV ay 3%. Laging ang base mo ay gross sales. So, how much yung gross sales dyan? Nakalagay ay 3 million. So, gagawin ko lang dyan, class. Number 111, question 1, 3 million times 3%. Sagot mo dyan, 90,000, letter C. And then, question number 2, how much is the overseas communications tax? Yung OCT natin, class. Nasaan yan? OCT natin ay Philippines to abroad, 10%. Nakalagay dyan, payments received from user of radio facilities for overseas communication, 750,000. 750,000 times 10%. Nasagot mo dyan, class, ay 75,000. Letter D. Easy. Sir, ano naman gagawin mo dun sa gross rentals of office spaces? Wala naman tayong diniscuss sa office spaces dito. So, ibig sabihin, it's either subject sa VAT or OPT. Kaya lang yung amount is 5,250,000. Tama? 5,250,000, ibig sabihin, ito siya. Vatable yan. Kapag hindi sumobra dyan, pwede ka 3% OPT. Okay? O office space, commercial pala. So, ibig sabihin, lagi siyang VAT. Okay, so, regardless, lagi siyang VAT, 5 to 50,000. Pag tinanong how much yung VAT, 5 to 50,000 times 12%. Okay? So, again, for 111, sagot mo dyan, letter C, 90,000. And then letter D, 75,000. Okay? So, yun lang ba? Number 112. O, ibang topic na yan. Sige. So, that's for OPT. Discuss rin natin ito. Mabilis lang. Excise tax and DST. So, doon tayo sa G-sheets natin. Excise tax. Pag sinabing excise tax, actually broad term yan. Pag sinabi mo kasing excise, pwede rin siyang nagre-refer dun sa tax on exercise of privilege. For example, yung estate and donors, yung pag-transfer mo ng ownership kapag estate and donors tax. Income tax is also an excise tax kasi privilege yan na mag-earn or mag-start ng business, yung mga ganyan. Pero ang pinag-uusapan natin dito, class, yung excise tax na imposed on excisable goods. Punta natin yung G-sheets natin, mabilisan lang. Examples of excise tax, yung naka-bold na lang tayo. Alcohol products, tobacco products, petroleum, mineral products, sweet and beverages, yung mga sweet and beverage, yung mga soft drinks. Okay, distilled spirits, cigars, automobiles, jewelry, perfume, binabasa ko yung mga nakabold. Mineral products, non-essential services such as cosmetic surgery. So again, yung excise tax imposed on excisable goods. Ano ulit yun? Alcoholic drinks, tobacco products, petroleum products, minerals, sweet and beverages, automobiles, cosmetic surgery. Excisable sila. Okay? Dalawang klase yung excise tax natin. Pwedeng specific or ad valorem. Pag sabing specific, based on weight, volume, or other units of measurement, for example, ay gasoline or Coke, yung soft drinks. Pwede sabihin natin na 5 pesos per liter. Per liter siya. Specific yun. Kapag sinabing ad valorem, ibig sabihin value, usually naman yan percentage of selling price. Okay? Sino liable na magbayad ng excise tax? Depende yan. Kapag locally produced, yung manufacturer. Yung nagmamanufacture ng mga excisable goods. Kailan mo babayaran yung excise tax? Ito yung unique dito. Before removal sa point of production. Ibig sabihin, meron kang factory. Ita-transfer mo sa warehouse. Bago mo i-transfer sa warehouse, bayaran mo muna excise tax. Unlike yung VAT at OPT, babayaran mo lang yung pag nabenta mo na. Kasi based on gross sales yun, tama? Dito kakaiba. Kapag excise tax, bago mo siya ma-remove dun sa factory, dililipat sa warehouse, bayad ka na agad ng excise tax. Kahit hindi mo pa nabenta yan sa mga customers. Kapag naman importer ka, bago mo siya ma-remove sa customs, bayaran mo muna yung excise tax. Okay. So, tingnan natin. Number 112 doon sa handouts natin. Which of the following is incorrect? A. If an article is domestically produced. Ito. The excise tax is paid before the goods are removed from point of production. Tama yan. B. If an article is imported, the excise tax is paid before the removal of goods from the customs. Tama yan. Letter C. Excise tax cannot be imposed together with VAT or OPT. Mali yan. Yung excise tax, pwede mong isabay sa VAT at sa OPT. Okay? Ulitin ko. Yung VAT and OPT, hindi mo pwedeng isabayan. Hindi pwede yun. Pero yung excise, pwedeng isabayan. Isabay mo sa VAT, pwede. Isabay mo sa OPT, pwede. So mali yung C, dapat can be imposed. Excise tax is an indirect tax which can be passed on to the buyer. That's correct. Okay? Actually, excise tax is a business tax then. Alright? Letter C tayo for number 112. Next, DST, Documentary Stamp Tax. A minor topic lang siya. DST, binabayaran natin siya on certain documents, instruments, and agreements. Hindi lahat binabayaran natin, naka-enumerate dyan sa tax code kung ano yan. Pero actually, marami yan. Kung titignan mo sa G-sheets natin, pero yung naka-bold lang dyan, yun lang yung importante. Okay? Actually, tatlo lang. Issuance of shares, yung issuance of debt, and yung sale of real property. Sale yan, nagbenta. Pag shares yung nag-issue tayo ng shares, tilo muna, original issuance or subsequent. Depende kung may par value o no par value. Dumuha tayo sa par value. Yung original issuance mo, 2 pesos for every 200 pesos of total par value. Kapag no par, ganun pa rin, 2 pesos for every 200. Ang difference nila yung basis mo. Ito based on par, ito based on consideration or yung na-receive mo na cash. Okay? Pag naman subsequent issuance, mas mababa na, 1.5 pesos every 200 pesos of par value. Kapag no par class, ay 50% nung binayad mo dito. Yun ibig sabihin ng 50% of original. Okay? Next, debt issuance. Ano ibig sabihin niya? Nag-issue ka ng, meron kang loans payable or meron kang bonds payable, yung mga ganyan. 1.5 pesos for every 200 of the issue price. Nagbenta ka ng real property. Selling price for market value, whichever is higher. And then, ang babayad mo dyan na DST is 15 pesos for every 1,000. Okay, ng selling price or fair market value, whichever is higher. Sir, paano pag hindi nagbayad ng DST? Ano yung epekto niyan? Tatlo. First, hindi siya i-accept ng Registry of Deeds. Hindi ita-transfer yung property from the seller to the buyer ng real property, for example. Next, hindi siya admissible as evidence sa court. Next is, hindi siya accepted sa notary public. Hindi mo makapanotarize yung kontrata nyo. But take note, kahit di ka nagbayad ng DST, yung contract between the buyer and the seller still valid. Valid pa rin yun. Okay? Hindi maapektuhan ng non-payment of DST yung validity of the contract. Sige, let's go to number 113. DST is necessary in, punta ka sa letter A, sale of real property. Ano ulit yung basis natin pag sale of real property? 15 pesos for every 1,000. Piliin mo selling price or fair market value, whichever is higher. Inheritance of real property, wala naman tayong nilagay dyan. Walang inheritance yan, dapat sale. Estate tax payment, donation, hindi yan. Letter A, best answer natin for 113. That's for documentary stamp tax. Let's proceed to our next topic, local taxation. I-discuss natin yung mga local taxes na pwedeng i-impose ng mga local government units or LGUs such as provinces, cities, municipalities, and barangays. Now, yung power of LGUs to impose taxes, nag-originate yan sa Local Government Code of the Philippines. And to be specific, ang may power to impose taxes ay yung sanggunian. Yung sanggunian, ito yung legislative arm of the local government. Kumbaga, kung meron kang Congress sa national government, meron kang sanggunian sa local government. Now, discuss natin yung general principles of local taxation. Let's take a look at our G-sheets. Okay, number 1, taxation shall be uniform in each local government. Focusan tayo sa mga nakabold. So, uniform. Number 2, taxes, fees, charges be equitable, ability to pay. Next is public purpose, not be unjust, excessive, oppressive, not be contrary to law, public policy, etc. Number 3, the collection shall in no case be let to any private person. Ibig sabihin na magko-collect ng taxes, ng local taxes, ay still yung LGU. Number 4, the revenue inure solely to the benefit of the local government unit. Each local government unit, progressive system of taxation. Kung makapansin nyo class, yung fundamental principles of local taxation, consistent siya sa general principles of taxation. Okay? Now, we have 3 types of local taxes I discuss. We have real property tax or RPT, local business taxes, and community tax. Start muna tayo with real property tax. Meron general principles din yan. Diretso tayo sa G-sheets natin. Mabaka ng konti. Fundamental principles of real property tax. Number 1, real property shall be appraised at its current and fair market value. Next is, real property shall be classified as on the basis of actual use. Next, real property shall be assessed based of uniform classification. Next, shall not be delegated to any private person. And last one is, dapat daw equitable. Okay? Yan yung general principles of real property tax. Sir, paano kino-compute yung real property tax? Doon muna tayo sa simula. So first natin is, tawag natin yan ay basic RPT. Ang formula niyan, assessed value times yung percentage. Sir, how much yung percentage or ilan yung percentage niyan? Depende sa location ng property. Kapag nasa province, 1%, mas mababa. Kapag nasa Metro Manila, mas mataas, 2%. Okay? Sir, paano computein yung assessed value? Fair market value times assessment level. Kapag chinek yung G-sheets natin, ang daming assessment levels dyan. Merong mga lands, residential, agricultural, commercial, industrial, mineral, meron pa sa buildings, and so on and so forth. Sobrang dami yan. Hindi nyo kailangan tandaan yan, except yung tatlo lang. Okay? Tatlo lang kailangan yung tandaan, class. Residential, agricultural, and commercial. Okay, the rest, huwag nyo tandaan yan. Residential, 20%. Agricultural, 40%. Commercial, 50% yung assessment level. Sir, paano natin maalala yan? Yung residential, hindi naman income producing yan eh. Mas mababa, 20%. Agricultural, well, kahit paano napuproduce ng income yan, especially yung commercial. Since napuproduce ng income, mas mataas yung assessment level nila. 40% agricultural, 50% commercial. Okay? Yun yung basic RPT. Kukumpitin mo rin yung Special Education Fund, which is assessed value times 1%. Laging 1% yan. Hindi yan katulad ng basic RPT na pwedeng 2% kapag nasa Metro Manila. Kahit nasa Metro Manila, 1% pa rin yung Special Education Fund. Idle land tax, if meron, okay? If applicable, maximum 5% of assessed value. Special assessment tax, if meron, kapag may public improvements, yung project cost, times 60%, iyan yung maximum amount yan. Pero usually class, ang computing mo lang dyan talaga yung dalawa na yan. Pag ang tanong sa'yo is basic RPT, ito lang. Pag tinanong ay total RPT, isama mo yung Special Education Fund. Except, may given na idle land tax or special assessment. But in most cases, yung dalawa lang na yan, kapag total, basic plus SCF. Alright? Let's go to local business taxes. Tingnan natin yung G-sheets natin class. Baba ka lang ng konti. Pero before that pala, may nakalagay dyan yung exempt from RPT. Basahin natin, mabilisan lang. Sino yung hindi kailangan magbayad ng RPT na pinag-usapan natin? A. Government-owned real property. B. Religious charitable educational purposes. C. Cooperatives. Letter D. Mga water and electric power. E. Yung machineries equipment used for pollution control, environmental protection. Just familiarize yourselves. Exempt sila sa RPT. Okay. May table tayo sa baba, yung local business taxes. Tingnan natin class. Meron tayong column for provinces, municipalities, cities, and barangays. Okay? Meron tayong isa-isa natin. Real property transfer, iyan yung kapag nagbenta ka ng real property, well, bukod dun sa CGT, bukod sa DST, bukod dyan sa mga ganyan, magbabayad pa tayo ng real property transfer. How much yan? Tingin ka dun sa dulo, sa rates. 50% of 1% of total consideration. Ano ba ibig sabihin ng consideration? Selling price. So, ibig sabihin, selling price or fair market value, whichever is higher, multiply mo sa 50%, multiply mo sa 1%. Next natin, printing and publication, 50% of 1%. Franchise tax, 50% of 1%. Napansin nyo, laging 50% of 1% kadalasan. Sand, gravel, other quarry resources, 10% of your market value. Yan, medyo mataas. Professional tax, maximum ay 300 pesos. Amusement tax, 10% din siya. And then, delivery vans and trucks, maximum 500. And community tax later, check natin yan. Kung mapansin nyo class, merong yes, no dyan. Ang nakalagay. Si provinces, lahat pwedeng i-impose yan, except yung community tax. Si provinces, hindi siya pwede mag-impose ng community tax. Si municipalities naman class, hindi siya pwede mag-impose ng mga taxes na pwedeng i-impose ng provinces. Kaya kung mapansin nyo, si municipality, ang pwede lang niya i-impose ay yung community tax. Si cities, ayan, mas may authority siya kasi pwede siya mag-levy ng taxes, nakalagay, same as provinces and municipalities. Lahat ng pwedeng i-impose si provinces, At lahat ng pwedeng impose ng municipalities, pwedeng impose yan ni cities. Kaya yes, lahat yan para kay cities. Okay? Kay barangays naman, lahat yan ay no, except dun sa community tax. Pwede rin si barangay dyan. At kung mapansin nyo class, dun sa sand, gravel, and other quarry resources, nakalagay sharing. Maghahati yan actually kapag quarry, related sa quarrying. Paano sir yung sharing yan? Yung provinces, yung province ay 30%. Kung nasaan yung kinakuwari na lupa. Yung city o municipality, kung nasaan yung lupa na yun, 30%. Pinakamalaki sa barangay. So FYI, 40% yan. Okay? Tingin tayo sa baba. Ano pa meron dyan? Ito pa nga yung mga sample fees and charges na pwedeng impose sa mga LGUs, building permit, bus terminals, cockpits, court fees, and so on and so forth. And then, side 2 sa business tax. So, basahin na rin natin. May tatlo tayong scenarios. Apat. If there is a sales outlet or branch, yung magiging side 2 niyan, or kanino i-impose yung mga local taxes na yan, kung nasaan yung outlet. What if walang outlet? Kung nasaan yung principal office. What if yung office same as outlet? Well, kung nasaan yung office. Okay? What if hiwalay? Yung office at yung plant, okay, or yung factory ay magkaiba. 30% dun sa office, 70% para dun sa factory, okay, or yung plant. Paano na yung maalala yan, sir? Well, syempre, yung plant or yung factory, yun yung nagpo-produce ng revenues. Yun yung kumikita talaga. So, mas malaki yung share nila dyan, yung babayaran nila, 70%, okay? 30% kung nasa yun sa office. Alright, so that's for local business taxes. Next, community tax. Ang tawag dyan ay cedula or residence tax. Basically, iyan ay proof of residence. Okay, so tingnan natin. Ito yung mga kailangan tandaan dyan. How much, sir, yung community tax? Depende kung individual or corporation. May tinatawag tayong basic community tax, 5 pesos for individuals. 500 pesos naman for corporations. May tinatawag tayong additional community tax. Pag individuals, 1 peso for every 1,000 pesos. Pero ang maximum niyan, take note, max ay 5,000. Okay, so maximum 5,000. Kapag naman corporations, 2 pesos for every 5,000. Take note, ang maximum naman yan ay 10,000 pesos. Okay, sir, for every 1,000 at for every 5,000 ng ano? For every 1,000 and for every 5,000 of gross receipts and assessed value of the property. Okay? So, again, yung maximum na additional community tax ay 5,000 pag individuals, 10,000 kapag corporations. Ibig sabihin, ang total maximum na babayaran natin, 5,000 plus 5 is 5,005. Okay? Pag corporations, 10,000 plus 500, 10,500. Yan yung maximum na pwede mong bayaran sa community tax. Okay? So, yan lang. So, let's go to our handouts. Number 114. 114, where does the local tax authority emanate from? Sanggunian, letter B. Number 115, which of the following is not a fundamental principle of local taxation? A, it shall be uniform, yes. B, shall be progressive, yes. C, local revenues collected by LGU inure solely to the benefit of the LGU, yes. Letter D, yung mali. Nakalagay, collection of local taxes can be delegated to any private person. Hindi pwede. Ang collection of taxes, si LGU bahala dyan. Hindi pwede i-delegate sa private person. Letter D for number 115. Number 116, not one of the fundamental principles of real property tax or RPT. A, shall be appraised at current fair market value, yes. B, shall be classified for assessment actual basis of actual use, yes. C, uniform classification, yes. None of the above. Lahat yan ay fundamental principles. D tayo for 116. Number 117, which of the following is incorrect? When there is a sales or outlet, the situs is where the outlet is situated, yes. B, when there is no sales outlet or branch, yung situs naman is principal office, yes. C, when the manufacturer's office is the same as yung factory outlet, yung situs is yung principal office, yes. Letter D yung mali. When the manufacturer's office is different from factory outlet, the situs is dapat 30% sa principal office and 70% dun sa plant is located. Okay? So, baliktad siya. Dapat 30% and 70%. Nakalagay kasi dyan, 70-30. Mali. Dapat 30-70, letter D or don't. Let's go to number 118. Computation tayo class ng RPT. A parcel of land in Metro Manila. O Metro Manila, ilang percent agad? 2% agad yun. Okay? Was assessed as commercial. Commercial, again, dapat alam mo yan, 50%. With a fair market value, 7.5 million. How much will be the highest possible amount of annual basic real property tax? So, basic lang ang tinatanong, ha? So, ang gagawin ko lang dyan, Lucas, ay fair market value times assessment level para makuha ko yung assessed value. So, given yung fair market value, 7.5 million, alam ko yung assessment level kasi commercial, dapat 50% yan. And nasa Metro Manila, multiply ko by 2%. 7.5 million, multiply ko by 50%, and then, multiply ko by 0.02. Ang basic RPT mo dyan, letter B, 75,000. Okay? Next, question number 2. The property is located in a municipality and assessed as residential. Nasa Metro Manila pa rin. Kasi nakalagay sa given, nasa Metro Manila. 2% pa rin yan. Pero pag residential, hindi siya income producing 20%. So, question 2, 7.5 million times 20% times 2%. 7.5 million times 20% times 0.02, you have 30,000. Okay? So, yun yung basic RPT natin. Ngayong class, kapag province naman yan, 1% gagamitin mo. Kapag tinanong total RPT, kasi basic na pinapakompute sa atin eh. Pag sinabing total RPT, isama mo yung Special Education Fund na 1%. Sige nga, what if total RPT yung tinatanong sa atin sa question number 2? So, ganito gagawin ko dyan. 7.5 million times 20% times 1%. Okay, laging 1% yan eh. So 7.5 million times 20% times 0.01, 15,000. So pag ang tinanong class doon sa question number 2, kasi ang tanong dyan is, how much daw yung basic RPT? Baguhin natin yung tanong sa question 2. What if sabihin dyan, how much yung total RPT? 30 plus 15, 45,000 yung total RPT. Pero sagot mo dyan, letter C na ha, 30,000. Ulitin ko, question 1, 75,000. Letter B. Question 2, 30,000. Letter C. Okay, number 119. How much is the maximum annual additional community tax for individuals? How much ba yung maximum sa additional? 5,000. Okay, letter D tayo, 5,000. Pero yung total, pag total, kasi additional nakalagay, kaya 5,000. Pag total, 5,005 sagot mo. Number 120, the maximum annual additional community tax for corporations, 10,000 naman yan. Additional kasi. Pero kapag total, 10,500. So letter B, 10,000 for corporations. Alright. So that's for local taxation. Let's proceed to preferential taxation. Preferential taxation, ibig sabihin ng preferential, merong preference or lower tax rates or more favorable tax rates compared to regular corporations or regular individuals. Sige, so isa-isa natin class. Senior citizens muna tayo. Senior citizens, tingin tayo dun sa G-sheet natin. Pero mabilisan lang, i-run through lang natin yung mga sa senior citizens na yan, yung mga benefits yan. 20% discount and exemption from VAT. Actually, nilagay ko na dyan. 20% discount and VAT exemption applicable yan sa senior citizens and PWDs. I-highlight nyo lang yung important benefits kasi ang dami yan eh. 5% discount on water utility. Okay, para lang yan sa senior citizens. Okay, minimum wage earner exempt from individual income tax, mandatory PhilHealth, GSIS, SSS, Pag-ibig, express lane or priority status, employment assistance, education assistance, training fees exemption, social safety nets, centenarian privileges worth 100,000 cash gift, city municipality specific benefits, indigent senior citizens, meron silang benefits dyan. And then yung 5% on basic necessities and prime commodities. So, tingin 5% ha. Yung tatlo na yan lang class yung medyo tandaan nyo kasi ang dami niyan eh. Tama? Pero ito yung pinaka-important. And then meron pa dyan sa dulo, death benefit, minimum of 2,000 pesos. Okay? PWDs. Yung PWDs, persons with disabilities, ang nagdetermine kung qualified yan ay si Department of Health. Okay? Basahin natin class. Types of disabilities. Psychosocial disability, chronic illness, learning, visual, orthopedic, mental, hearing, speech, and multiple disabilities. Okay? So, ayan, benefits yan ay actually similar din sila ng senior citizens. 20% discount and VAT exemption, 5% discount, ito, basic commodities, prime commodity, basic necessities, prime commodities, and then mandatory coverage, as PhilHealth, education assistance, express lane, city specific. Ang wala lang dyan sa, yung significant na wala dyan sa PWDs, yung 5% discount on water and utility. Wala yun sa PWDs, ha? So ngayon, kailangan mag-present ang Senior Citizens ID and PWD ID para makapag-claim ng mga benefits na yan. Okay? Now, pag-usapan natin, sir, paano naman yung mga establishments na nag-hire ng mga senior citizens at PWDs? So yung, again, meron discount yan, tama? 20% discount. Ngayon, yung point of view ng business establishment, okay, for example, restaurant, Jollibee. Yung point of view ni Jollibee, yung discount na 20%, pwede siyang part of allowable deduction. So, additional deduction siya. Bababa yung taxable income, tama? Ngayon, VAT exempt sila, tama? Natutunan natin sa VAT, kapag VAT exempt, yung output wala niyan. Okay, yung input VAT, pwedeng part of cost of goods sold or allowable deductions. Basically, pambababa din yan ng net taxable income. Ngayon, meron pang kakaibang benefit dyan para dun sa point of view ng establishment. Kapag nag-hire ka ng senior citizens o PWD, pwede kang mag-report ng additional compensation expense. Additional expense, so bababa naman yung net taxable income. How much sir yan? Pag senior citizen, additional 15%. Okay? Kapag PWD, actually mas mataas eh. Pag PWD is additional 25%. Okay? For example, ang total na po yung sweldo mo sa senior citizens ay 100,000. Ang pwede mo i-deduct ay 115,000. Pag naman PWD is 125,000. So, ganun siya. Okay, next. BMBs, Barangay Micro, Business Enterprises. Take note, micro yan ha. So, micro. Pag sinabi yung micro, dapat yung total assets ay hindi mag-exceed ng 3 million. Alright? Iba yan dun sa MSME na diniscuss natin sa corporations. Kapag MSME kasi, total assets natin exceeding 100 million yan. Ito, 3 million ha. Okay. Take note class, yung BMBs na yan, basahin muna natin. Baba tayo. BMBs, okay, ito yung mga benefits niyan. And then, take note na dapat ay so not applicable siya, okay, not applicable siya kapag exercise of profession, alright? Not applicable kapag exercise of profession, magtayo ka ng audit firm or law firm or dental clinic, yung mga ganyan, hindi yan pwedeng considered as BMBE, alright? So tingnan natin class, mabilisan lang, basahin natin yung incentives nila. Income tax exemption, hindi sila magbabayad ng income tax. Exemption from minimum wage law, special credit window, pwede silang umutang. Priority sila, financing, Land Bank of the Philippines, DBP, Small Business Guarantee and Finance Corporation, People's Credit, ayan, mga ganyan. Technology transfer, and yung last one, take note, LGUs may also reduce the amount of local taxes. Yung BMBs na yung class, exempt sila sa income tax. Pero hindi sila exempt sa local taxes ha, reduced lang. So ito, babayaran nila yan, pero reduce mo sa baba. Okay? Pero hindi exempt ha. Revocation of income tax exemption, kailan, kasi isa sa mga benefits sa income tax exemption. Pero pag ito nangyari, yung following, magbabayad na sila ng income tax. Transfer of place of business, nag-exceed ng 3 million yung total assets. Okay, voluntary surrender, certificate of authority, death of registered individual, and so on and so forth. Yung mga yan ay, pag nangyari yan, revoke na yung income tax exemption. Next, double taxation agreements, DTAs. Basically, class, ito yung para naman ma-avoid yung direct double taxation. Pwede tayong mag-apply ng DTAs kung applicable sa atin. Pero yung class ay mostly para yan sa mga passive income. Dividends, interest, and royalties. Sir, paano makakapag-avail ng mga benefits or yung mga tax relief, okay, from double taxation agreements? Kailangan magpasa ng tinatawag na TTRA, Tax Treaty Relief Application. Ipapasa yan, isasubmit yan sa ITAD, International Tax Affairs Division ng BIR. Okay, yun yung proseso dyan. Double taxation agreements. Next, PEZA, Philippine Economic Zone Authority, or may mga tinatawag tayo dyan na eco zones or economic zones. Bago ka maging qualified as PEZA registered, yung company mo dapat located sa eco zones. Okay? Hindi lang yun, dapat pasado ka dun sa mga eligible activities. Sir, ano yung mga eligible activities? Basahin natin. Sa G-sheets natin, the following are the activities eligible for PEZA. Export, IT, tourism, yung mga ganyan. Okay? Ano pa? Merong manufacturing and so on and so forth. So, assuming yung company mo ay located sa eco zone at pasado ka dun sa eligible activities, meron kang tinatawag ng mga fiscal or mga tax incentives and mga non-fiscal incentives. Concentrate tayo dun sa fiscal incentives. Okay, ang pinaka-substantial dyan yung tinatawag na income tax holiday. Basically, 0% income tax. Hindi ka exempt ka sa income tax. Depende yan. 6 years, actually 6 to 8 years kapag pioneer project. Ibig sabihin ng pioneer, first time na technology sa Philippines, first time ma-introduce sa Philippines yan. Kapag naman non-pioneer, 4 years. Kapag naman for expansion or modernization, 3 years naman yung income tax holiday. Ngayon, pag nag-expire na yung income tax holiday, pasok naman dyan yung 5% gross income tax. Okay? And then, meron din dyan mga exemption from local taxes, etc. May mga non-fiscal incentives din pagdating sa mga PEZA-registered companies. And last one, yung BOI, Board of Investments, under DTI yan actually, no? Under Department of Trade and Industry. Now, ang pagkakaiba ng BOI sa PEZA, wala siyang concept na economic zones. Sa PEZA kasi kailangan yung company mo located physically dun sa economic zone. Pag BOI, kahit nasaan ka sa bansa, okay? Kahit saan pwede yan. Walang concept na economic zones yan. Pero dapat yung business activity mo ay nasa priority areas under Investments Priorities Plan or IPP. Basahin natin, class. Ano, sir, yung mga priority areas na yan? Mga preferred activities sa alagay, manufacturing, agribusiness and fisheries. So, titignan ko na lang yung mga nakabold, services, and so on and so forth, mga export activities, and etc. Okay? Naka-enumerate yan sa tinatawag natin na IPP, Investment Priorities Plan. Yung IPP, applicable lang sa BOI yan, ha? Wala akong minention na IPP sa PEZA. Next natin, sir, what if naging eligible, naging BOI registered? Ano, sir, yung mga tax incentives yan? Actually, medyo pagka-similar sila. Ang difference lang yan, kapag pioneer project, kamukha, no? Pero sa PEZA kasi, 6 to 8, pwede i-extend sa 8. Kapag BOI, hanggang 6 lang. Okay? Pag pioneer project, sa BOI, 6 years. Kapag non-pioneer ay 4 years. Kapag expansion modernization ay 3 years. Ang difference lang ito. Ito ay 6 to 8, ito ay 6 lang. Okay? Ang big difference din nila, class, sa PEZA, take note, pag nag-expire na yung income tax holiday, 5% GIT. Walang 5% GIT sa BOI. Pag nag-expire na yung income tax holiday, 25% RCIT ka na. Regular corporation ka na after ng income tax holiday. Okay? And last one for BOI, may tinatawag tayo, class, na ADLE. Additional Labor Expense. Ibig sabihin, pwede mag-report. Parang ito. Parang yung kanina, Additional Compensation Expense. Ganun din yan. ADLE. Pag nag-expire na yung income tax holiday, subject to 25% RCIT eh. Pero si BOI, pwede siyang additional expense pa. Ibig sabihin, additional allowable deductions. Depende. Pag yung company na yan ay nakalocate sa LDA, less developed area, additional 100%. Okay? Pag hindi nakalocate sa less developed area, 50% lang. Yung less developed area, may link tayo dyan sa G-sheets, basically places yan in the Philippines na, ayun, yung mga less developed areas yan. Okay? So, for example, ang total na salaries natin or yung mga labor expense natin ay 1 million. Ang pwede mo i-deduct kapag nasa less developed area ay 2 million kasi plus 100%. Pero pag wala sa less developed area, additional 50%. So yung 1 million making 1.5 million. Okay? So applicable lang yung ADLE pagdating sa BOI. Okay, sige. So let's go to number 121. Lapit na. Which of the following is not one of the benefits of senior citizens? A, 20% discount exemption from VAT, yes. 5% discount on water utility, yes. Mandatory health coverage, yes. Letter D, groceries worth up to 1 per week and 10% off, hindi, 5%. Okay, so mali yung D, dapat 5% yan. Number 1 to 2, not one of the benefits of PWDs, 20% VAT exemption, yes. 5% discount, yes. Express lane, yes. Minimum 5% discount on water utility. Again, yung discount sa water utility applicable lang yan sa senior citizens, hindi sa PWDs. Letter D for number 1 to 2. 1 to 3, it is defined as any business enterprise engaged in production, processing, manufacturing products, including agro-processing, Total assets not more than 3 million, BMBs yan. Okay? So dapat, para mag-qualify ka as BMB, dapat production, processing, manufacturing. Okay? Pag related sa exercise of profession, hindi pwede maging BMB. Letter C tayo. Number 124, which of the following is not one of the benefits? Exemption from minimum wage law, yes. Income tax exemption, yes. Priority to special credit window, yes. Exemption from payment of any local government taxes, mali yung D kasi. Yung local government taxes, sinabi ko kanina, reduced yan, hindi exempted. Reduced yan. Okay? Letter D, dog, yung number 124. Number 125, in general, in order to avail relief of double taxation, income earned within the Philippines, what must be submitted by a non-resident alien to the ETAD of the BIR, TTRA, Tax Treaty Relief Application, letter B or boy. 126, it is a Philippine government agency tasked to promote investments, extend assistance, register grant, etc. PEZA, Philippine Economic Zone Authority, letter C. 127, which of the following is not one of the incentives of PEZA? Income tax holiday, yes. Tax duty-free importation, yes. Exemption from wharfage, yes. Actually, yung D, hindi yan. Yung dog, exemption from VAT on local purchases. Pag titingin ka sa G-sheets natin sa PEZA, nakalagay dyan class ay, nakalagay dun sa letter D. Fiscal incentives, letter D. VAT zero rating. Okay, ibig sabihin, 0% VAT kapag PEZA. Kasi ano yun, yun yung tinatawag natin na effectively zero rated. Okay? So, mali yung exemption. Dapat zero rated siya. Letter D for 127, dog tayo dyan. The Philippine Board of Investment is under, sabi ko kanina, yung BOI na yan is under DTI, Department of Trade and Industry, letter B. Number 129, which of the following is not one of the incentives of BOI? Income tax holiday, yes. Duty exemption less, ADLE, tama yan. 5% gross income tax, mali. Yung 5% gross income tax, applicable lang yan sa PEZA. Kay BOI, after income tax holiday, 25% RCIP na yan. Letter D for 129, 5% gross income tax, dog for 129. Finally, we're down to our last topic in taxation, remedies. Ang kailangan natin tandaan sa remedies ay yung tax audit process. I-discuss natin yan. Start tayo with the letter of authority or letter of assessment or LOA. Basically, yun yung mag-trigger ng tax audit process. Authorization yan ni CIR or ni BIR na i-assess ang isang taxpayer. Now, let's say in-assess na o in-audit na yung taxpayer, nakakita ng mga discrepancy. Ibig sabihin, yung tax paid ay hindi equal sa tax due. Mag-i-issue ng notice of discrepancy. And bibigyan si taxpayer ng 5 days para mag-respond sa notice of discrepancy. Pero meron siyang 30 days para mag-submit ng supporting documents. Okay? Next step natin is issuance of the preliminary assessment notice or PAN. Nandiyan yung findings, facts, and basis. So take note, yung issuance ng PAN ay mandatory yan bago mag-issue ng FAN. Right? So let's say si taxpayer ay hindi siya nag-respond. Okay, within 15 days. O kaya naman, nag-respond siya, pero without merit. Ibig sabihin, hindi convincing yung response niya. Mag-i-issue na ng FAN. Final assessment notice, also called formal letter of demand. So, pag FAN, demand for payment na yan. Pinagbabayad ka na ni CIR. Right? Sir, meron pa bang remedy after issuance ng FAN? Meron pa. Meron kang 30 days to protest. Okay, protest ka kay CIR. May 2 types of protests tayo. Request for reconsideration and request for reinvestigation. Ano yung difference na yan? Kapag request for reconsideration, yung existing evidence, existing documents, yun yung papa-assess mo. Okay? Kapag request for reinvestigation naman, magpo-provide ka ng additional documents, additional evidence within 60 days. Okay? Now, after mag-protest, let's say na-deny ka ni CIR. May 2 types of denial tayo. Meron direct denial and indirect denial. Kapag direct denial, sinabi ni CIR, denied yung protest mo. Mag-i-issue siya ng FDDA or yung Final Decision on Disputed Assessment. Sir, meron pa bang remedy? Meron pa. Within 30 days from receipt of direct denial, pwede kang mag-file ng motion for reconsideration kay CIR or pwede kang dumiretso na mag-appeal kay CTA Division. Okay? Ngayon, let's say nag-MR ka kay CIR, na-deny. Meron kang 30 days ulit. Upon denial ng MR, mag-appeal kay CTA Division. Kapag indirect naman, ibig sabihin class ay not acted upon ni BIR or ni CIR. So, within 180 days upon submission of documents. Walang ginawa si BIR, within 180 days, ang tawag natin doon ay indirect denial. Sir, ano yung remedy natin kapag indirect denial? Hintay mo yung decision. Kung ayaw mo maghintay, mag-appeal ka na sa CTA Division within 30 days. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, 180 plus 30, 210 days yan kapag indirect denial. Alright? Sir, paano kung na-deny tayo ni CTA Division? O, i-elevate mo yan. Meron kang 15 days para i-elevate yan sa CTA and Bank. Pag na-deny ni CTA and Bank, appeal ulit natin yan, 15 days kay Supreme Court Division. Kapag na-deny ni Supreme Court Division, elevate natin yan, appeal tayo, 15 days, Supreme Court and Bank, yan na yung highest court in the land. Okay? Ibig sabihin, pag na-deny ka pa niyan, wala na, final na, kailangan mo na magbayad, wala ka ng remedy. Okay? And, ayan, so isama na rin natin class, itong refund. Okay? Kasi meron silang similarity dyan eh. Paano kapag si taxpayer ay may overpayment? Pwede mag-file ng refund yan. Ang claim for refund kay CIR. Okay? Ngayon, CIR or BIR, Commissioner of Internal Revenue or Bureau of Internal Revenue. So, interchangeable yan. Mag-file ng claim kay CIR. Ngayon, pag nag-file siya ng claim, well, it's either ma-approve siya or disapprove. Tama? Pag na-approve, wala problema. Paano kung na-disapprove or na-deny? May dalawang klaseng denial. Direct denial, indirect denial. Familiar yan, sir. Parang ito. Okay? Actually, yung rules niyan, halos kamukha na. Okay? Pag sinabi ni CIR, oh, denied yung refund mo. Okay? So meron kang 30 days para mag-appeal kay CTA. Sir, ano ibig sabihin ng indirect denial? 180 days upon submission of documents, hindi nag-act upon si BIR. O meron kang 30 days para mag-appeal kay CTA. 180 plus 30, 210. Parang yung kanina. 180 plus 30, 210. Alright? Next is prescription. Hanggang kailan pwede kang i-assess? Hanggang kailan pwede mag-collect si BIR? Depende yan. Sa assessment muna tayo. Depende. Kung with filing, nag-file ng ITR or without filing, hindi nag-file ng ITR. Pag with filing, tingnan mo muna, kapag not fraudulent, 3 years, actual filing or deadline for filing, kailan ba yung deadline? April 15 lagi yan. Whichever is later. Sir, paano na maalala ng later? Para mas mahaba yung mas matagal yung prescription period kay BIR. Okay? Kapag fraudulent, ano ibig sabihin ng fraudulent? Merong understatement ng gross income or overstatement ng allowable deductions for at least 30%, considered as fraudulent yan. Pag fraudulent or without filing, 10 years from discovery of fraud. Okay? So hanggang kailan pwede mag-collect? No, depende. Kapag na-issuehan ka ng fund, 5 years from issuance of fund. Pag hindi ka pa na-issuehan ng fund, follow mo to. Nakalagay same as above, follow mo yung rules na with filing and without filing. Okay, lahat yan. Same yan kapag without fund. Okay? Next, sir, paano mag-collect si BIR? Dalawang klase. Administrative remedies or judicial remedies. Pag administrative, dalawa, distraint or levy. Pag sinabi mo distraint, personal property, foreclose na yan. Pag levy, foreclose yung real property. Pag distraint, meron kang right of preemption. Kasi ipa-public auction yan. Ikaw yung priority na bumili. Kapag naman levy, meron kang right of redemption, 1 year. Pwede mo i-buy back yung real property na yan. Pag judicial, pwedeng civil case. So, ibig sabihin for damages or criminal case for imprisonment yan. Alright? Dito muna tayo. Penalties. Dalawang klase yung penalties natin. Pwedeng surcharge or interest. We know yung interest ay 12% per annum yan. Yung surcharge, dalawa yan. Pwedeng 25% or 50%. 25 pag simple neglect, 50% pag willful neglect or pag fraudulent. Tingnan natin yung G-sheets natin. Sa baba, dun sa remedies, tingnan sa baba, nakalagay dyan surcharge. Meron tayong 3 instances. 25%, failure to file any return and pay the tax due on time. Okay, so ibig sabihin, delinquent, hindi ka nag-bayad on time. Failure to pay the deficiency tax and failure to pay the full or part, no return is required to be filed. Pag ganyan, 25% surcharge. Okay, tawag yan dyan, simple neglect. 50% naman, pag willful neglect. Pag willful, intentional, wala ka talagang plano magbayad. So, tingnan natin, 50% willful neglect or in case of false or fraudulent return. Alright? And then, sir, what if wala talaga pambayad si taxpayer? Well, pwede kang makapag-compromise kay BIR. Dalawang grounds yan for compromise. Reasonable doubt as to validity ng claim or financial incapacity. Wala kang pambayad. Kapag, sir, how much yung pwedeng i-compromise dyan? Well, kapag financial incapacity, walang pambayad, 10%. Other cases, 40%. For example, sisingil ka ni BIR, 1 million bayaran mo. Okay? And napag-compromise ka, financial incapacity, 10% na 1 million, 100,000 na babayaran mo. Okay? Pag other cases, 400,000. Pero pag financial incapacity, kailangan i-waive mo yung bank secrecy law. Abatement or cancellation, sabi ni BIR, huwag na natin singilin yan. Tuwing kailan? Kapag unjust or excessive, so over assessment, or kapag yung cost to collect hindi sulit, baka mas mataas pa yun kaysa dun sa possible na makollect ni BIR. Right? Tawag natin doon, abatement or cancellation. Okay? Mga kailangan tandaan for remedies. Tapusin natin to. Let's go to numbers. Yung 130 and 131 actually related sa filing yan. Sagutan na rin natin. 130, generally the following individuals are required to file an ITR. Who is the exception? A, every Filipino citizen residing in the Philippines, yes. Yung resident citizen, kailangan mag-file niyan. Letter B, every Filipino citizen residing outside the Philippines, o non-resident citizen yan, on his income from sources outside the Philippines. Mali yan. Kasi kapag NRC ka, taxable ka lang within the Philippines. So yung na-earn mo outside or without, hindi mo na kailangan i-file sa ITR yan. Letter B, yung sagot natin. Okay? Letter C, every alien residing in the Philippines or non-resident alien, okay? Resident alien within the Philippines, that's correct. Yung non-resident alien engaged in trade or business, NRA, ETB, yes, kailangan din dyan within the Philippines. Letter B, yung sagot natin for 130. 131, the following are not required to file ITRs except sino dito class yung kailangan mag-file ng ITR. A, individual whose sole income has been subjected to file withholding tax. Okay. Hindi kailangan yan. Individual whose compensation income does not exceed the statutory minimum wage earners, hindi kailangan. Letter C, kailangan. Individuals gross income from business does not exceed its allowable deductions. Whether income or loss ka, basta business, kailangan mag-file ng ITR dyan. So, C na yung sagot natin. Letter D, individuals with respect to pure compensation income, hindi na kailangan. Number 132, an assessment shall become final if not protested administratively or if such protest is not filed with the BIR from the receipt of assessment within. Okay, so naka-receive ka ng fund. Ilang days pwede tayo mag-protest kay CIR? 30 days. Letter A tayo dyan. Number 133, using the preceding number, relevant supporting documents must also be presented to the BIR from filing the protest on the assessment. Request for investigation within or request for investigation, ilang days tayo allowed na mag-provide ng supporting document? 60 days. Letter B, 60 days. Number 134, question is, what is the last date to appeal to the CTA? O, tingnan natin. Date assessment was received, o yung fund na-receive natin March 10. Date petition for investigation, March 31. So, ilang days yun apart? 21 days. So, walang problema. Pasok tayo dun sa 30 days. Date of filing of documents. Ang documents kailangan i-submit mo within 60 days. Ilan days ba yan? From March 31 to May 8. So April, so that's 38 days. Pasok din. No decision on the protest is received. Ano ibig sabihin class ng no decision? Ibig sabihin ay indirect denial. Tama? Wala siyang decision eh. So, when is the last day to appeal to the CTA? Kailan niya, ilang days nga ba ulit class? 180 days plus 30 days. So 210 days. From the date of submission of the documents. Kailan ka nag-submit? May 8. So dito tayo mag-compute. So ang gagawin ko dito class ay May 8. Okay, so May 8, 2025, mag-plus ka ng 210 days dyan. Okay? So ako nasasagot dyan. Pag manually kinumpute mo yan, yung May 8, 2025, pag nag-add ka ng 210 days, ang makukuha mo dyan class ay December 4, 2025. Kaya sagot mo dyan, letter C. Okay, number 135. Date of payment of tax erroneously paid, April 15. Date of claim for refund. Oy, refund. Ito yun ah. Nag-claim for refund kay CIR, June 15. Date of decision of denial by the BIR was received. Oy, dinenay. Ano tawag doon? Direct denial. Okay? Unlike yung kanina na 134, yung previous item, indirect denial yun eh. Kaya nag-180 plus 30 days tayo. Pag direct denial, meron kang 30 days para mag-appeal kay CTA. When is the last day to appeal to CTA? Kailan ka na-deny? September 15. Okay? September 15, 2025 plus 30 days tayo dyan. Plus 30 days, ang makukuha mo dyan class ay September. So, plus 30 days ay October 15, 2025. Final answer, letter D, October 15, 2025. And last item. Okay, statement 1, all criminal violations may be compromised except those already filed in court and those involving fraud. That's correct. Statement 2, filing a false or fraudulent return, 50% surcharge. Yun. Tama yan. Letter A. Statement 3, a compromise for tax liability on the ground of financial incapacity. 10% daw. Tama ba yan? Yes. Pag financial incapacity, 10%. Other cases, 40%. Abatement or cancellation may be availed by the taxpayer on grounds of unjust and excessive. Sobra-sobra. Assessment of tax. Tama lahat yan. So all of the above statements are true for number 136. So, yun lang. Focus na tayo for remedies. Okay, so ever since sa screen nyo lang ako nakikita. Pero soon, in person na sa PICC. So taking and of course, sa testimonial dinner natin. So it means CPAs na kayo by that time. Pinakal babies, I sincerely believe in you. Easy yung CPA licensure exam na yan. Time to claim the CPA title. And good luck. I will see you soon, future CPAs. This has been Sir Brad. Thank you.
Oh yeah, let's unlock this first. So I don't have to... Okay. Can I use those planks there? I don't think so. Okay. There's the plank. She knows what Rumble is. She was just on Rumble. I saw her on Rumble. Use that plank to cross the gap. Okay. Got some keys. Oh, you know what? I'm going to change the flashlight battery too. I am real. Thank you, Chris. Ooh, thank you for the follow, Sand65.
And Sand65 coming in with a follow bomb.
You just made the list!
Appreciate the follow. Thank you, Chris. Happy to hear somebody's real. Alright, hold on. We need to think carefully here. Dude, another one? But I'm getting faster at deleting it. Locked?